Welcome back, everyone, to the VESL Fortnite Regionals. This time, we're going to be covering the Central Conference that will be going over the Eastern results from yesterday, Central today, tomorrow will be Southern, and the final day of competition on Thursday will be the Western Regional for North Carolina High School Esports here. Myself, Vaudable, alongside with Zephyr, will be giving you all the Fortnite action, and then we had some pretty great matches yesterday as well, Zephyr.
That's right. We started off in our Coastal Clash here where we had, I believe, 16s compete in our first qualifier here. It was, at the end of the day, New Bern High Team A who took away with a crashing lead, winning I believe, 3 out of the 4 games. A second place finish in one of them. Still an excellent start that pushed them above the medal at a 299 points.
Right below them, too, we also got to see 175 points go to Southwest Edgecombe High Team C, who got pretty good placements for the most part. The highest was second place at the end, but consistently in the top 4 every single go-around. After that, for third, who joined them was Currituck County High. They did pretty good for themselves. Actually, the only other team other than the #1 team in New Bern High Team A to get a win in round 3 yesterday, and they did pretty good for themselves. And talking about New Bern High, well, Team B also made it in right at the end of the top 4, 18-point differential that we saw between them and the team that was trailing right behind them, West Craven High. We only had 4 rounds yesterday just because a little bit of a mess up in that first one. You talked about 4 wins that we saw for New Bern High A. I mean, we saw the first win from them and then a couple more after that. They were the most consistent team there. So I'm curious on the teams that we have today, who's going to rise to the top, the cream of the crop, with the top 4 moving on to the state finals that'll be happening at the beginning of next year?
Well, I'll tell you what, we talk about that right now. Before we jump into this first lobby, let's very quickly take a look at our central teams playing today here. This time around, we're going to have quite a bit more actually competing through, and thankfully, not quite the same repeat offenders, several new faces.
That we are so many teams, 20 in total, that'll be competing. We'll get them into the lobbies as quickly as we can for these matchups as well. Some teams are taking a little bit of time, so a little bit of a smaller lobby than you would typically see with all of these rosters, all of these players competing in these matchups. But nonetheless, still some great looks to see from these players the entire time today. We have 5 rounds that we have scheduled for them to compete in, try and make it into those state finals. Points is what we got to talk about here, too. 30 points for Victory Royale, going down from there, and 2 points per elimination. The eliminations came in clutch for those top teams yesterday, Zephyr.
Yeah, in an insurmountable way, too. New Bern High Team A really set the point of medal when it came to that specific facet. When it came to those eliminations, they made up the wealth of their placement, far beyond any win or second place or any other placement that they actually accumulated, from 33 eliminations to 23, 16, and 20. Every single time this team was able to surmount the 30 points from a single Victory Royale, go above and beyond that to push for the top at 299. And that's my big question, Vaude. We got to see a very dominant factor in yesterday's tournament. Will we see the same today?
That is a good question. I hope we do see some solid competition across the board. We had 4 or 5 teams that were really competing throughout the end of it there. And really, I want to see the top teams from the Central region prove that they're that much more competitive than the Eastern region that we saw yesterday. And speaking of that, we already see the D1 FN athlete getting taken out. Maybe not Division 1 as we would like to see.
Maybe not quite the best start, but remember, there is still those 5 lobbies. If you're already one of those first teams to, well, I guess, find your way out, there's still plenty of time to make that one count or make that one happen here. We're going to tune in initially right, though, off of the bat with one of our competitors right now. It is Green Level Team A, as they're going to capture this flag, get some of that extra legendary loot, see what they can find outside of Frenzy Fields. I do have to warn, there is another team in the area just across here. No contest yet.
No contest yet. They are going to capture that zone and make sure that they can get all the loot possible, get all their shields up. Well, they don't really have to worry about that too much. More some help from Papa Panda, who was just sitting on top of that. Took a little bit of damage earlier on, but that's going to be the biggest thing here too. This is all builds. It's no creative mode, no builds. You have to worry about the late game when it comes to those mats, and making sure you farm up early, because we didn't really see too many build fights towards the end, Zephyr, yesterday. So I'm curious if all the Bob builders are in the lobby this time.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's more teams, so it definitely could add to it right off of the bat, though, taking advantage from that early boom they found here. It's the first move in from Team 3, sending this one far forward. Their pump action in hand, dropping the low pro will find these initial knocks and the full elims to boot here, saying goodbye. Cosmic Crafter
was trying to escape as best they can, but a 3-on-1 situation, not really too much they can do. Sunstrider Simp also knocks down here as well. You see the Rocket Ram coming forward so that they can move and pursue whoever was trying to escape into this farm building. They have it surrounded. Now Papa Panda going in to see if they can finish off a player that might be hiding in the up reaches of it. They get a shot off, they build the ramp too. The other player's not really noticing anything, and they just destroyed the floor below them, and that's a great strategy so that they don't really know exactly where the other players are going to come from. They just got surrounded and dissected is what we saw happen there, Zephyr.
End of the day, that's the best that you can hope for there. The full assault, and now Frenzy feels completely alone in the teams that currently exist here. It's a massive success right off the bat for Green Level Team A here. One of the first teams to pick up their elims, but not a team that is alone here. Down to 43 players within our lobby. Yes,
this
already
is the quickest.
A fourth.
It's insane to see how many teams have been eliminated this quickly. It just goes to show that they're just getting familiar with the drop spots of the other teams that are out there. And now we're taking a look onto a different squad over here that did have a bit of a build fight before. They did get one of those briefcase turrets to see if they can use that against someone, but not really able to do too much with it there. So it's just going to be seeing if it can notice anyone coming in from the distance. But it only lasts a couple seconds. There's no targets for it, so it's not really going to be the most effective. I think this is more just the remnants of a fight this team was in before.
Yeah, coming through and cleaning up here, Sway in crew from EE Smith High Team B. They take out one squad down in what was actually a placement of 17th. So I believe at the very get-go of our game here. For now, just getting themselves well equipped and looted up before they will start to have to make their transition as well.
I'm curious what the other teams are up to now, too. We saw like an early fight, and we saw exactly how some of the teams were going for different mats, different looting locations for POIs, and just to see where exactly they want to go. Mega City, one thing to note from yesterday's effort, we saw so many teams right towards the final echelon, or the final portions of these circles, be around there. But anyone who was in this Mega City didn't really have the best positioning. So staying away from the Mega City, maybe on the outskirts so you have more mobility to rotate around depending on where the storm ends up, is always a solid idea. It just depends on what loot the team has right now. And really, it looks like the weapons for this player, Anonymous, doesn't really have the best items or best weapons available to them. They have like an uncommon and a rare, a shotgun and a pistol, more just focusing on supporting their teammates. And I know later on, there's not going to really be much long range that they can use for themselves.
Well, at least right now, we might be planning out for some of that more TARP gameplay at the end here. Remember, there is still a wealth of players that are going to be competing in this lobby in a much greater sense comparatively to yesterday's matches, and that does change up how those rotations come out, how those end games play, and how long we even exist in each of our matches here. Things tended to kind of come to the crashing halt even as soon as Storm 7 or 8, well and before we truly saw teams get close to each other, just because there was that lack of presence. This time around, we're still sitting at 40 players well and before our Storm has come to its close. And I know for a lot of you folks out there, there is technically, I mean, you're maybe used to a little bit more, but at the end of the day, it is still a much greater conflict than we'll start with in the Coastal Clash.
Ooh, and we are seeing a bit of a conflict here too. The shield already down for this Anonymous player, and this is actually the EE Smith High B team that are trying to see what they can do here and face off against whoever is across the way from them. You see some shots coming out from non-valeduric, I guess, or valedictorian maybe, I don't know.
You gotta be number one somewhere.
Exactly. You got to be number one at some point in time, but still healing up from the pizzas. It's such a cool item that you can use that just to get all the shields necessary. And, you're just having a good time. You got to make sure your characters in Fortnite are eating.
Hey, eat good and save the chug splashes. That's definitely
Yep.
more of the tempo that you need for that late game when we're talking about the explosive and quick heals. Something that I'm surprised to see, those, even though they do take this damage, it is almost immediately responded with a further rotation. A little updates though for y'all in the Elam feed. We do see Leesville Road Team A get some additional eliminations in their own sense, and most notably, Wake Young Men and Women's Leadership Academy's Team B here is to find 2 of their players back into the game. So we actually see that number rise here as we close in.
That we do, which makes it even easier for some players out there to maybe get some more eliminations on the board, because reminding everyone out there at home, they do account for 2 points. So more eliminations, the better as things go along, depending on where you place as well, of course. But still trying to see what the other teams are going to be up to throughout this matchup here, if anyone's going to be facing off against the team that we're spectating currently. But now we do have a little bit of a fly cam as we fly into the mega city, see if anyone is hiding out in this area, awaiting this team of E.E. Smith High B team that we've been spectating along the way here, Zephyr.
At least right now, they're in good position. We did have that discussion at the beginning of the game regarding the mega city. It can be a great transition point, but most often or not, we don't see the direct finishes here, especially due to the sense of its verticality. So, like you said, kind of seeing what exists and then maybe finding that next major setup well within the storm should be the move for a team like E.E. Smith.
Not really too much to worry about here. If we can take a quick look at the map just to see where the storm is ending up currently, but it did look like another couple teams actually are coming in towards the mega city, so might be a Frenzy Fields finish based on the positioning right now. The mega city seems to be where a lot of teams are just going to be keeping an eye out on the competition as they try to move in from the zone into this area. You have a high vantage point, easier to see people, but also if you're on top of those skyscrapers, it's pretty easy for people to spot you out as well.
Right off the bat here, E.E. Smith caught out his purplish ball, taking to the skies off of the minor jump that you have. Non-Validaric and Sway immediately putting up their own defense in a 2v1. They should be able to take Iconic out, but instead it is Non-Validaric that falls here.
I don't believe that's the actual FaZe Rain that is playing. It's just somebody's using their name. It would be interesting to see if that was actually a thing. But they're long out of high school at this point in time. Some interesting names for these players. But you do see Non-Validaric getting knocked down. You see Dilex also taken out here too. The IGL Consolo coming through as well, trying to see what they can do. And it seems like there's 3 different squads converging on this area.
Yeah, you can see Kexi on Zaza once again as we make references to that. One of the few teams, Trinity High School's Team A, on these outskirts, looking to see if they can potentially third-party this one. It does seem like E.E. Smith does get the opportunity to get some recovery, as Sway is the focus here. Purplish Bulk on the other side, taking some time to get that revive off. It still is, though, a technical 3v4, as one elimination was found in full.
That there was a couple of shots coming out into another squad who is along the way waiting to see if they can push in themselves onto this FaZe Rain squad, because we don't know exactly what team this is from, but somebody's pushing up on them as well, as you see another player coming in through, so they gotta back off as much as they can.
Yeah, the names may not line up here in regards, but hey, if you know, feel free to yell at us. Whether it may be the name or not, they've got all the firepower to finish the job here on E.E. Smith. Left alive is just the single remaining member of Sway XF, still left to his lonesome in that singular building there. It's a major success, though, for our no-name team. 3 eliminations quickly picked up.
Yeah, big elims coming out from this team. Bragger Kanji, Consolo, FaZe Rain, looking to move forward with Iconic Wet and do what they can to move closer into Frenzy Fields. That seems to be the direction that the Storm is going towards, as we can see these players now from the POV moving as quickly as they can. There's a couple of different mobility items that are out there. And as you can see, just blasting up, using the broomstick to move forward even more so, and plenty of different maneuverability options that this team is utilizing so that they can get wherever they need to, but also try to see if anyone's hiding along the way.
At least for right now, taking this full force, this movement into Steamy Springs seems to be the appropriate sense regarding the storm. Remember, we talked about getting out of that mega city and then finding your way into a dominant position while this squad is still playing for the edge and potentially searching for those additional elims. Still, best they can ask for. We're going to tune in, though, to a bit of a tarp exchange from here. Build on build battle. Right now, it seems like almost complete. It's Lags going for the escape, and I believe a third party now coming in.
Yeah, Beast Mode from EE Smith High C, looking to see what they can do against the rest of the competition here as well, that they are facing off against in this build. But not really focusing on the builds, more just focusing on getting into the builds and fighting off as best they can. 2 knocks come out so quickly. Pyro Walker doing a lot of damage, and another team getting involved, but the floor is dropped down, and so many people are going to get knocked down from this and definitely won't recover from it. You see a rocket coming out as well. Beast Mode still somehow staying alive. Papa Panda going down into the action to see if they can finish things off. Beast Mode somehow survives, lands in the water, avoids that build. That was at the bottom there, trying to see if they can get their Telltale Story teammate up, it looks like. But B-Man moving in, they both get knocked down, and it's not going to be a good look for them in that fight.
At the end of the day, we're going to say goodbye to Smith High C as they will face their end at the backside of that third party. Once again, it is Green Levels Team A, the squad that we saw contest at Frenzy Fields, who make the rotation. While, yes, they do lose out on Dr. Stork from the very aggressive drop. I think they'll have time. Storm isn't too oppressive as of yet. That revive should come through in full force.
Struggling to kind of get away from here now, but Green Level Team A doing all that they can to move forward, and that's the team that we saw before, and you mentioned it, using that slurp juice, making sure that they can get back up in time. It's really going to matter about how they rotate here, especially if the storm completely closes in, because then it starts to do more damage once it connects with the next zone. As they do get up off the cliff and are able to get away a little bit, we will take a better look at them as they try to escape this storm as best as possible. Have plenty of builds after winning that fight, and definitely had some loot to work with, but didn't have all the time that they would have hoped for to loot the leftovers from the team that they faced off against.
Yeah, at the end of the day, there it is just the scraps from EE Smith High C. Instead, it will still be their success. They actually make their way back towards Frenzy Fields quite quickly, and knowing that they came from this POI in its low sum, they're one of the teams that have the best knowledge of who might be setting up here, since this was their starting placement. They still play it respectively. You can see those boxes in the distance being set up, and they will try to rip and tear where they can. The Rockets coming out here in full force, albeit I think maybe a little bit slow from that distance to make a true impact. Well, maybe I'm wrong. They're still finding shields on the break.
Yeah, I guess the players aren't exactly expecting it, but you can kind of see the pincer maneuver that's coming out for Papa Panda and B-Man all the way up there too, so they're just getting some good damage going. Now moving forward with the broom to see if there's anyone else that's in the area, but it looks like they were actually able to get some good damage onto the team that they're facing off against, but they just wanted to get the finishes instead because nothing popped up in the feed. So for the most part, the team was able to disengage, and now this team really needs to get towards the zone because they don't want to lose health and extra shield when they are, or more just health, while they're retreating from that storm, and maybe have another team go against them, try to gatekeep them from getting into the zone.
At this point, 28 players left alive here. We're down to the halfway point within our lobby. For now, will be a little moment of leeway for Green Levels Team A as they take some time on the edge of the storm here. Want to be careful how they approach the entrance, as they will be forced to leave the Frenzy Fields into a bit more of an open area. As it stands right now, though, still very safe in their current setup.
Yeah, it looks to be going towards maybe the relentless retreat currently with the way things are progressing. So towards more of the water side of things, not really exactly where they would want it to be, but there's not too many teams that are remaining right now, 28 players currently, so looking pretty solid at the most part for those that are still remaining in this lobby. They're pretty spread out, but you see a lot of eliminations coming in on that feed right now. and plenty of action awaiting the teams that are still alive. Some shots, but really not landing a single thing there, unfortunately, for this player.
Yeah. I believe in your feed, Trinity High School Team A have been lighting this one up pretty much all game long, and I think they might actually have just faced their end here as I say that, so a little bit of a caster curse in its final moments against Holly Springs Team A. For now, though, we still check in with, of course, our friends from Green Level. It seems to be a nice presence from Needy Muscles, always kind of playing the backside here, pressuring while the rest of our threes see if they can line up maybe a more direct angle. They're not one to box up, though. I mean, they are constantly moving, constantly getting closer and closer here in that next rotation, always seconds away.
Really, a lot of these teams seem to be more focused on building like barriers so that they aren't getting shot at, and just something that they could go up with the ladders and do everything that they can with the ramps, but not really too much here, just a fight from across the way. Maybe they'll get some shots going off, but here we go as we see a team trying to get from the zone and move forward towards that relentless retreat, where another team is struggling themselves after some shots came through. Elimination, it looked like there again, and so many teams getting caught out by the storm right now, but they have a little bit of time to catch up if they have the resources to recover with some med kits or bandages and some mini pots.
Right here you can see this is Holly Springs, the team to eliminate our friends from Trinity High, and now pushing far in forward. DJ Halo already making these aggressive moves up against Cloud X. We'll lose the shielding, but we'll find the successful wipe. But this is the free moment potentially for Green Level Team A to move back in. DJ Halo is just barely able to get back to his team, but before that, they still face the full elim and knock. It's a great move from Green Level here.
That it is. Great moves that are happening from this team. And now you see the rockets come out too, I believe that was, or one of the sticky grenade launchers. Either way, explosions coming across. Papa Panda there to finish things off, taking out Mr. Chronospade, or M. Chronospade. David is going to be washed off the map in a second, but they use the rocket ram to get away. Perfect timing for that, but they got to be careful because across the way you can see as well, Consolo and this team we talked about before, which is Reedsville, a late entry into the competition today that we didn't talk about in our graphic earlier. One to look out for because they've been doing pretty good themselves.
Now, it isn't the complete wipe for Holly Springs. David still makes this out here. You've got to be careful making the move as close as you are directly towards Reedsville, who actually opt to play out through the back end. They're looking towards Green Level to get out in front of that storm very early behind them. But with that movement comes the punishment of our friend FaZe Rain, who is taken low and is in fact eliminated. Now potentially a 4v3 opportunity for Green Level as the Rockets come through.
Oh, that was a terrible rotation there from Reedsville when it came to where the circle potentially was going to go. They were trying to get an eye on it before, but they didn't predict it properly. Fragger Kanji, the only one remaining for that team with Consolo, trying to see if they can at least stay alive, but the circle is not in their favor. David is washed, and Brodite is there too, so they got to take them down, maybe get some eliminations. Consolo does go down. Fragger Kanji still here, but the Rockets have been so effective from this Green Level team.
It's been a great move for delaying and destroying at many points, and they'll extend Dr. Stork over to get that full wipe onto Fragger Kanji. So what was assumed to be the excellent moves here from Reedsville is actually quite punished at the hands of Green Level. We do see some major movements as STEM Early College as a 3-man roster does finally make their moves out from center zone, but there is now no full team left in this lobby, down to 11 players.
11 players remaining as you're talking about, but look at the eliminations that are with this Green Level team. 16 they've been able to pull out. That's huge for them in the point totals because reminder, 2 points per elimination. As you see more shots coming out, shields taken down, but they aren't able to take down the barrier so they could get some good damage. Rocket Ran came through, so somebody is in the area trying to steal that elimination from this player here on Green Level, but you do see the shots come out. They are able to get that one down. Dr. Stork did take out Brodite, and they do have some more shots coming through. It's getting down to the wire here, Zephyr.
I assume this is Chatham Early College here on the opposite side, and you can only imagine they only last for so long with little rotations like that. You can see the knocks from afar here as they end up not only in the sight lines of green level, but also STEM early college here. Back up against the wall, green level will slowly make their move forward. Some simple plants as a rocket ram is passed on over for, I guess, a minor second. We were looking for mobility, but instead we say no need. It is just the weapons alone to make these breaks.
I think this is one squad versus another currently that remains. 6 players that are up. B-Man able to get an elimination themselves, so looking pretty good for their team there. But really, just a couple players left on the lobby here for these players to take out. Needy Muscles looks like is one of them, and Bad Mini Game on YouTube looking for something here.
I was gonna say, literally 2 single solo players. David is washed, is thankfully able to survive
1 HP
for moments longer.
Minigame.
As I say, the metal coming in clutch here for both of them, but Dr. Stork has done it before, and Dr. Stork will do it again. A full leap forward on towards Bad Minigame. I can't believe they've lasted as long as they have on 1 health remaining here. Finally, it is the rest of green level that shows up, and now they turn their attention to David for one final assault and the victory royale.
There we go. Green level Team A are your victors in round 1 here for the Central region for the VESL Fortnite Regionals. What a great finish as they default dance on them. That's the way to do it once you get the victory there. But valiant effort too. We saw from that last player somehow staying alive towards the end. We're able to just eke out the placement points better. It all comes down to those elimination points too. So we're getting those point totals here and there, Zephyr, but I mean, green level Team A, we followed with them early on. We saw them take a fight at the beginning, middle, and end, and they're going to be a team to keep an eye out on, especially after this victory royale.
It is likely that they start off the day somewhere close to or around that 60 plus, 70 plus point margin.
At least.
Because when we did check in on them, we knew for a fact that they had already accumulated at least 16 eliminations. And we can both do the math. That's more than 32 points just from their elims alone here. So, of course, them from green level, I do want to bring up, yes, as you made mention of, Holly Springs there surviving to the very end with David is washed in second. But not just them. I'm very curious, albeit Trinity High School goes down early between Jolts, Caxi, and Splika. There was a huge chunk of elims that they were able to pick up in that mid-game, even if they weren't placing high.
We saw some great placement, some great final plays to try and outlive some of the other schools that were out there, but we still have 4 more rounds to go of competition tonight, so we're going to be taking a quick break, and after that, we'll be back with more Central Region action in just a moment. We have our teams to look out for in this next round. And the number one Victory Royale squad that we saw last time, well, that was the Green Level High School team with first place and 22 eliminations after. What a finish from them.
It was a strong start right off the bat, at least for Green Level, but our other competitors aren't that far behind. 74 points to the current lead, 43 behind them in Trinity High School with their own 13 eliminations. This is something that I brought up, though. Their placement leaves a lot more to ask for. The lowest out of our current top 6 here in 9th place. If they had actually made it a bit further, it could be even closer to that chance of a number 1 placement.
Right below them, we do have that Reedsville High that we talked about, where the late entrants, they got 6th place themselves with 8 eliminations. So doing
I believe
with only 5.
Let me jump in here. Reedsville coming in, I believe, with the 3rd place finish there, 36 points, 6th placement with 8, I believe, elims there. And then to finish that out, I believe it is Holly Springs, who we did see try to exist all the way to the end there. It was David is Washed as that solo player in 2nd with 5 elims, who managed to at least breach the top 4, but the lack of elims is something that bites them in the butt.
Yeah, lack of elims is definitely a thing to worry about for those teams that had good placement but didn't really have many eliminations. We're just kind of trying to get into the zone each time, not really focusing on the fights that much. But we saw early on that it benefited the number 1 team currently in Green Level, as they were able to get early eliminations, some eliminations towards the middle, and right at the end, they racked up all of the final eliminations on the remaining teams.
Yeah, that was the big thing here for Green Level, that yes, we do tend to see with some of our best teams, but not being alone at Frenzy Fields was actually a huge benefit to this roster. They took early advantage, they took the dominant route within that POI, and then when they turned on these opposing teams, they were successful, and they completely made their lay of the land across the entire Frenzy Fields area, taking out multiple squads, but with the war then, yes, finally moving into that storm and competing for, inevitably, their victory royale here. But Vod, I pose you a question. It was yesterday that we shouted and we praised our friends New Bern A, where they were successful 3 out of 4 of our matches. Can Green Level do it again?
I think they can with the performance we saw last time. There wasn't really another team that seemed as close. As far as skill level goes, maybe that Reedsville team would be able to do something, but they weren't able to survive as long as they could. Really, that weird rotation we saw towards the end in the zone just did them to their demise. So now it's really going to come down to how the rest of the teams will meet out against this squad. But bad me game we talked about before made it super far. They're already knocked out here.
It's a bit of a shame there for, I believe, STEM Early College as they face difficulties. And meanwhile, on the opposite end of the bullet here is Trinity High School. Already, right off the bat, major eliminations there in that feed, taking us down to, yes, a successful 18 squads eliminated here. Now we definitely look towards Arab Janus and Antoni here to stay alive for this roster. Getting caught out on the edges of Breakwater Bay, not the place you want to be.
Not the place at all with the way that they were performing so far. Definitely need to get away from this area. As you can see on the mini map on the bottom right, so many teams around this zone, and really this player, you need to see them just get away as best as possible so that they don't have to worry about the other squads that might be near them. I know they're trying to get all of their shield up as best as they can, but they got to be careful, especially since they only have 2 players remaining compared to whoever it was that faced off against them.
I believe on their opposing end here, just from what I can see on the edge of Breakwater Bay, is the remnants of Wake Young Men's and Women's Leadership Academies Team B. For the time being, I'm just going to start calling them Wake Young to help myself out
easy
in terms of that tongue twister there. And as y'all can see in the Elam feed, it is continuing to light up. Most notably, a big name on there once again is Reedsville, with, I believe, FaZe Rain beginning to find their own success.
And reminding those who know FaZe and those players, it's not actually FaZe Rain, it's just someone who is a fan of them that is playing in this. They're definitely older than high school competitions, but Nonetheless, it's always fun to see people that are fans of content creators that are out there. And speaking of FaZe Rain, well, there we go, taking
There we
out
go.
Kingdom of Plum and that entire squad of Reedsville, already taking out a full squad themselves.
Yeah, I believe we'll have to check in maybe a little bit later and see exactly who is at the end. I believe that is Pine Forest, who faces their inevitable end here at the hands of Reedsville. But once again, we are starting to see the dominant fashion form of some of our major heavy hitters here. While we haven't gotten to check in on green level right off of the bat, once again, it is Reedsville and immediately Trinity High School. That could be your race, but as I say that, Trinity High School's Jolts is immediately dropped here, so maybe not to potentially last is Western Guilford, who finds that successful first knock.
And we really didn't see too much of this Western Guilford team last time. I mean, they weren't actually able to perform and make it into the lobby from the teams that participated in the last round. So now seeing how they were able to get in this go around, and hopefully they'll be able to get a high placement themselves and move on from there and take out some teams who might not be expecting or know exactly where they're going to drop in the early stages of this game. But as we have 19 teams, the 20th, as you can see there, is our spectator that's currently spectating these teams. Following alongside with Reedsville, of course, they did get some decent eliminations, 8 total last time. But they're getting closer to already here with the 3 that we see currently on the screen for this team, but you could expect more to come where that came from.
And that's something that we have to bring up. There are more players within these lobbies. So yesterday's totals of those eliminations are even more important, right? Just simply having additional bodies to successfully wipe out can be so advantageous for any one of these teams, because the even 4 or 5 additional teams is a multitude of 16 to 32 extra points for your squad to potentially work with here. That is better than some of the top placements. You can literally not make it anywhere close. I mean, that's what we saw out of Trinity High School. They had abysmal placement, 9th in this lobby, but it was their 13 elims, those 26 points that vouched and carried them.
More aggressive playstyle tends to work pretty decently here. Now you see the players on this squad just going to try and fight an NPC to see if they can get some good loot, and that's exactly what they do get. So they're going to be having some great pickings for themselves moving forward, and try to see if that'll be enough for them to have resource-wise as well to face off against the odds that are out there. But also wanted to note in the feed earlier on, if you might have missed it, we did see a reboot for the rest of the squad for STEM Early College. So the 2 players who did remain, they didn't get engaged at all by any of the other teams who took out those first 2 players. So they were able to get their full squad back.
And this was the squad that actually made the wipe. This is Wake Young's Team B, and now successfully in the hands of the Blade, they do have a team just above the vault here that they might be able to take advantage of. CloudX a little bit on that back end, taking their time to finalize some of this loot. Do you want to make mention of it? Seeing some issues, though, in that feed for Trinity High. Once again, they didn't actually go down to that initial fight. They got the take back on them, successfully wiping the squad that engaged them. But it was Kexi on Zaza, who is the most successful of all those players and is now completely eliminated, face to potentially find a reboot for that roster.
Yeah, that might be that entire roster taken out here as well. And we talked about it. That is the second placing team currently as far as points go. 13 eliminations, 9 placement on the round itself. So you can tell that they were much more aggressive, and that's why they didn't really have as high of a placement as you would expect when eliminations are so heavily favored in the point calculations for this. But really just goes to show sometimes the going all out strategy works out well, and other times it leaves you to being eliminated pretty early on.
Well, I don't know if they're completely out yet.
True.
I have not seen the full. I haven't seen the full elimination. I'm pretty sure Splika is still within that roster somewhere. But granted, we both know how difficult it can be to be a simple or alone in terms of just playing as a rat potentially. Right now, though, I am surprised. We see a lot of presence from Wake Young, and we know there is an opposing team in this lobby, just not quite taking anything just yet. Instead, we're going to tune in with our friends Sway, X Up, and Non-Valid Derek. This was a team that fell at the hands of Reedsville last time around when we checked in with them here, literally in the mega city. So once again, reapproaching here in This same POI. You got to be a little bit careful. I don't think Reedsville is as aggressive this time around. And for EE Smith B,
Yep.
should be fine.
That's going to be a huge thing for them too. They seem to like this mega city and making sure that they can use the health spray so that they could get all of the HP back up for their teammates so that they are all ready and locked and loaded for their team. Depending on where they're going to rotate around here, they have a launch pad to work with so that they can get across the water and not have to worry too much, but they're just waiting to know exactly when they want to use it. They don't have anyone else pressuring them so far, so we'll have to see if there's going to be any teams coming up soon, but it looks like the zone is shifting again, kind of close towards Shattered Slabs this go around instead of Relentless Retreat where it ended last time. So still a lot of teams having to rotate from the eastern edge of the island to the other side.
I believe for EE Smith High, they don't even waste their time. They start to see some of these teams begin to move in from the edge of the storm here, and they know how close they are. Just on the cusp of Mega City, they have all the time in the world to not only make that rotation successfully, but we can also potentially use that opportunity to, I believe, get some mats, get some better resources given how close they are. I know it's 15 to 14 seconds, but that's more than enough time to get this team situated.
Speaking of getting situated, we see even more players from Reedsville getting knocks and eliminations, and they've been doing pretty good for themselves, but we are going to be switching POVs here into the spectator yet again to check on with this. I think this is one of the EE Smith teams themselves, so they're doing pretty good for the rotation here, and you can see on the mini-map that they might be coming into conflict with another team pretty soon, but they haven't quite spotted them out just yet.
Well, at least right now, it is a slight separation, so I'm not super supportive of EE Smith. I believe they might, though, have found an initial knock on Bro Diddle and crew here from, I believe, that Chatham Early College. This was the team that we saw try to survive super late into that last game, and I believe even successfully finishing 4th in the overall placement, but not really finding the elims themselves to make much of a presence in that leaderboard.
Did see Fragger Kanji actually get knocked down by B-Man from green level, so two of the top teams we saw last go around getting some eliminations on each other. They're converging against them, so green level, that's the team to look out for, and you saw them being pretty deadly in the last lobby with the 22 eliminations. So Reedsville, after seeing that in the feed, probably noticed that they need to back off a little bit and go for a different rotation, especially with there still being 15 squads remaining at this point in time, Zephyr. Kind of surprising with all the action we've seen so far in the feed.
I mean, at the end of the day, 15 out of 20, when we talk about the 5 squads that are eliminated, that is still technically 20 or so players. So a hefty amount of the competition as we are just slowly potentially starting to reach that halfway point here. But I want to make a small point towards this. We talked about getting towards that edge of the zone, especially as we tune in and look towards E. Smith predominantly. They're taking their time. They do not want to catch some of that early smoke. They're actually playing a little bit more towards their placement. And personally, that does make sense to me. They face their difficulties very early on, having themselves fall to Reedsville High, even though they got some of those early elims. And as a result, they finished with only 22 points off of that first round when they know they could have potentially usurped at least an additional 10 or so just if they had stayed quiet.
Reedsville again fighting back and forth with this green level that we keep noticing happening here too. So interesting to see how things are going down there for that team in the feed when they've been struggling themselves against this team. This is Chatham Early College that we're tuning into now. We saw them have some middling success last go around with Bro Little doing everything that they can to try and survive for them, but it wasn't really enough because they didn't get a single elimination. They placed 4th, but they couldn't really do much after that. So all the teams who got eliminations, even with lower placements, did place higher or even tied with them. They're tied with 2 different teams currently. Just waiting to see what they could do in this fight against the odds that are out there. There's still a couple of teams that are fighting from them across the way as they are in towards these Rumble Ruins in between Frenzy Fields as well. See exactly where they want to rotate to, but just grouping up in this box, changing around some of the ammo so that the player with the rocket can use that to expert ability, and that's always what you want to do. Drop rockets for your friend who has a rocket launcher and then go crazy with it.
Plus, after coming back from that reboot, just like 5 minutes ago, you're just getting yourself set back up, right? Getting your one teammate who needs the opportunity to come through. And meanwhile, back towards Frenzy Fields, the area of green level that we discussed so much from our last game is Reedsville, who are currently on that struggle bus. And while, yes, they have found some early elims, currently totaling up to 8, it seems like it comes at the cost of potentially their elimination. Consolo is still well within the action, and hey, there's always the chance for those reboots at this current point, and I don't know.
There's one player right near them too. They might have heard them building around them and maybe saw some of the smoke from the campfire. So they're slowly converging on their spot. Smart editing here too, so that you can peek around. And this has been in the game for such a long time since builds have existed. But you can see on the minimap right behind them, there's someone looking in their direction, and that is Flimsy FN. Somehow not noticing them just yet on the crest of this hill, but as the zone is in the opposite direction, they're going to have to fight at some point.
Yeah, West Force High, I believe their single remaining rat in the hands of Flimsy here, and they don't want to catch
they don't
any
want
pressure.
To
they are letting Solo walk this one away, and I guarantee you they absolutely know, given how loud Consolo was moments ago. But back towards the Frenzy Fields, where the heart of the action, the issue that presented itself for Reedsville was first and foremost here. I will say, though, keeping this one slightly separated, not directly getting into the action, definitely kind of keeping a distance here. Instead, it is going to be E.E. Smith High B who faces their issues coming out of that mega city, and slowly are losing their members.
Yeah, we've seen that happen a couple of times with this E.E. Smith High B, who have been doing all that they can to survive as long as possible. But speaking of surviving, one team finally got eliminated, so we're into the 14 out of the 20 teams who are in this lobby. So far into this, still 42 players remaining. And now we see Reedsville, who's just our cameraman at this point, getting closer to some of the squads that while they are on this rotation. They aren't really finding the best spot, but they are finding that reboot van. They're trying to see if they can use all the metal possible to protect themselves, and wise to do so. But if a full squad goes against them, they're not going to be able to survive this for too long, even with all the building that they are doing.
This is all the metal that you can account for at this point, but it will be capitalized on. I mean, this is equivalent to waving a red flag in the air. Bro Diddle making that move, and the launch comes through in the end, I believe, from one of our grenades. But for Consolo, I mean, that's the worst that you can hope for. You have lost the opportunity now to get FaZe Rain, Fragger, and Conic back in it, and you are still being chained. O's on the other side. It's a great pump successfully for Consolo, and now the full refresh.
Ooh. Unfortunate spot to find themselves in there, as we'll be switching POVs in just a second, but still doing all that they could there to try and stay alive, get the reboot. Valiant effort, but bad timing. Might have been better off if they just waited for all the teams to rotate from that POI, then get the reboot off while you're still in the storm. Just risk it for the biscuit and then go forward from there. But a bit overzealous, but they didn't really have any other options when they were that solo player, unless they just wanted to stick for placement towards the end. With 14 teams that were remaining at the time, not too much they can do. And now we see another team here trying to converge on this one player who came in on the rocket ram.
This is E.E. Smith C, a fellow sister or brother in the face of the E.E. squad, and instead they find a solo member to capitalize on. It isn't completely the entire team, but hey, that's more than enough of a refresh for E.C.C. No, my apologies, E.E. Smith C here to get this one running outside of the slabs.
Only 32 players remain now. Reminding before the storm was shrinking, it was 40 some odd players still alive, so a decent amount of eliminations have come through on those rotations, and there's only a couple of teams that are still remaining for those teams. As you can see, still 12, so I guess single eliminations coming out here and there, even with all the pressure that these teams have been putting on to the other competition out there. But we saw D1 FN Athlete get eliminated in the first opening seconds of the last round, so this team doing a lot better than they had in the past.
Lasting a lot longer for sure here as we talk about the storm. It's still technically...
This is Panther Creek Team A, by the way.
My apologies. Panther Creek Team A here, and something to note, though, is the fact that it is still technically 11 squads remaining. So we aren't really into the heart of placement yet. You're not really going to be accumulating a huge chunk. I do see something pop up on that Elim feed, though, that gives me some hope here. Trinity High, still in it, albeit losing out on GBH. Drunk to win lets me know that they are still competitive here.
And this team, I was talking about too, doing a little bit better than last time. They placed 15 out of 16 squads that were in the last lobby. So definitely better placement, but they need some eliminations to back it up too. And speaking of eliminations, so many going on in the feed right now. You see Delicate looking for something here to go against the competition, boosting themselves a bit forward, then using the rocket to break down the builds and follow through to try and get the knock and the elimination. There is a knock that does come out. They're just trying to keep the builds going for themselves and not get knocked down with the shields. It still remain smart to get that slurp back on, but they couldn't really do too much with it. And all the pressure on them, the shots come out. Delicate somehow was able to stay alive for a second, but eventually gets eliminated.
And it is none other than Splika here. We talk a lot about this team, Trinity High School, as they have been so successful in wrapping up those elims. But once again, now we pop back on over to none other than STEM Early College. This is a roster that did manage to survive in that late game, but it was as a duo, and it might be once again. Jada already dropped. Is there even the time with the Storm?
I don't think so.
Taking as much as it is. Legendary Slurp Juice is good, but it is not good enough. It is going to be the full run here.
Oh man, every time we change POVs, 10 different players are eliminated. Only 20 remaining right now, trying to go back and see if they can get their player back up. But no, they're just looking for some different materials to work with and better weapons that were still remaining. As you can see, another build coming out here too. And this was the team we were talking about before, Panther Creek, that was doing a lot better than before. We have seen some eliminations come out from all these players, so much more points as well. 4 elimination, actually not even 4 eliminations. Aim Abuser has 3 eliminations themselves, so doing pretty good for this team. Now looking to just get that with some placement. Can't get the shots off, no accuracy at all, but the builds are really good, and the skill is coming out there, and they do need to back off, and that's good. They have the majority of their team remaining, but you can see Delicate is no longer alive on their team, so they only have 3 members remaining in the squad.
On the other side here, Holly Springs, another representative who made it quite far into our last game. David is washed, existing all the way up into second place there, just holding out for dear life on the opposite end. Meanwhile, just want to say it again, Trinity High facing their own. It is a double knock drop and potentially the elimination. For now, a slow walk on the front edge of zone. It is going to give the best pull forward here. Right now, high ground though, taken out in front. You got to be careful.
They do have to be careful right now. Only 7 squads remaining, 14 players total. We do see a knock, and they want to go and get the finish too while the zone is going to rotate in just a second. Some builds that are just getting completely destroyed, but I'm loving the speed here from Aim Abuser that's doing some good work. They just got to take the wall down here and maybe take down this next squad, but they couldn't get control of the wall there in time. Couldn't do enough damage to it either, and now they're just really in a bad spot for themselves where it's only 2 of them remaining against the world that is still around them.
Yeah, it was Holly Springs on that other end who do successfully get those wipes, but they face their own difficulties as STEM Early College coming in from that zone finds a double knock drop onto them as well. Aim Abuser and Sky Knight still well within this, even though they are now separating to potentially see how they can last, albeit a little bit longer there. B-Man, that final member of Green Level, I believe, just kind of biding their time, keeping the dream alive as every further placement keeps that first place even more impactful from game 1.
It was interesting because we saw STEM Early College and one of the players from Green Level take out each other so that they could get an elimination of some sort. I guess explosion maybe went off, or just shotguns at the right time and connected perfectly for them both to be knocked out on that play. But this team of Panther doing as best as they can as we're switching around POVs this time on it to the DJ Halo and David is Wash squad.
Right here, David is washed from Holly as they have been successful in defending themselves, but like I said, lost out on Crossbeer and DJ Halo in that early exchange from STEM. Still, it is most notable that they do hoist into the high ground.
Ooh,
No
B-Man's gone.
wood or brick left, though. No wood or brick left. They are down to literally just the metal mats here. Need a refresh if they want to keep this one going.
Bad spot to be in for sure. You can see them try to get the better angle here when the storm is about to rotate. Only 7 players remain, so 2 here and a couple more squads that are still out there. But I do think the entire Green Hill team is knocked out at this point in time. Anthony's still up though, so looking to see what they can do for their team, as we've seen them place pretty decently in the past.
Still, it is a duo that remains, I believe, for Holly Springs, which is going to make its major impacts here. As Aim Abuser facing their end from Antoni, Chase and Harris now as a 3-rat squad. Big Blast, though, will face difficulties for David Iswash, getting caught out there from that height. It is very unlikely that Onster is to get this revive, and instead we are all out in the open. Harrison Bros going to take advantage of this one, launching up from the sky. Little to shielding left here as everyone's looking low, except for our main man below. Taken out with the blast, though. A 1v1 situation as Tony comes out. Chase on the opposite end. A box-on-box battle here, looking to choke this one out. Chase dominantly holding the high, even taking the time for the minis while they have the opportunity. A drop, a snipe, and a win for Chase and crew.
Lucy Ragsdale High, the first time we've actually mentioned this team in the first 2 rounds, was able to get the victory royale this go around, and they actually weren't able to participate in the last round. So first time they go into first victory royale. I mean, what a win and finish for them. Really going to depend on how many eliminations they were able to get, as it looked like there was only 3 members in their squad. Nonetheless, though, to make it all the way to the finish, get the victory royale, and you talked about the confidence, getting that heal on so that they had at least something to back them up when it came on to that one-on-one towards the end. Really solid for them. But one thing I wanted to note, too, I think we saw a completely different end game here because Green Level were getting picked apart one by one instead of teams fully engaging that squad. If the full squad of Green Level was still there, might have been a different story, but also there wasn't a single full squad left at the end.
I was about to say, you literally were down to solo members there. It was literally just Holly Springs who had their duo between Onster and David Iswash, but even lost out on that. And then we saw that shockwave grenade come through that truly diminished and destroyed what they were able to put together. Still, though, big questions on the board. A lot of presence once again from Trinity High School, even though we didn't get to see them there in the end. Elims in the feed were still more than enough. Not just them, also Panther Creek as well.
And we did see Stemmer, the college, surviving a decent amount of time, too, towards the end there, like we did last time. I mean, they placed top 3. I think it was top 6 towards the end on this one because they also had 2 players towards the end. So some really good finishes, some really good eliminations from teams who got eliminated early, too. Then we also saw Trinity High, doing the best that they could. Even when they had teammates get knocked out, they still were able to get some up. It's so unfortunate, though, for, Reedsville High, because they only had that one player trying to survive, get the reboot van, and it didn't work out whatsoever. But that's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. And we're going to be taking another quick break here before round 3 as we get those points tallied up so we can give you some updates on the leaderboards. Because reminder, only top 4 makes it into the state finals in the new year. So we're going to be taking that quick break. We'll be back in just a moment. Shout out again to Lucy Ragsdale High as they were able to do pretty well for themselves, make it into their first lobby because they didn't make it into the first one. Get 13 eliminations in a victory royale. I mean, most eliminations out of any of the teams who were in that top 5. So congrats to them for pushing into the top 6 themselves. And a big thing here is what we keep talking about, Zephyr. Eliminations matter so much more than what you would typically expect in the Battle Royale mode.
I was about to say, this is a complete adaptation as it is increased indefinitely for these elims being worth 2 apiece. And not just that, having the sizable lobbies to go alongside that means some of these teams a little bit more of that early action are finding themselves, even though they may not make it to that end game, it's something that does influence your scoreline so much more so.
Well, we'll have to see what the score lines are going to be once we get all of the teams into this next lobby for round 3. This is where things get to the nitty gritty, depending on how quickly we can get these lobbies going. It's either going to be 4 or 5 rounds, so could be the second to last round, depending on how things go here for these teams competing tonight. I know a lot of teams are doing pretty decent for themselves. The team that got the first victory royale still in first place of 109 points, green level, with 22 eliminations in round 1, but only 8 in the second one. So that is something that they need to work on. They didn't really have the best placement because they got picked off one by one. So maybe they need to stick together because the lobby's not going to be as easy as they were hoping after round 1.
We'll see where it fares for them right now. Most of these teams, though, I think it's still, whether it is the second last or last, it is still that way point. And we just saw something that is very apparent when we talk about Lucy, right? At the end of the day, one game can be that whopping amount to even push you into the what we assume is close to, if not maybe that top 4. I don't think they're there just yet, but that first place finish alongside that 13 KP is at least 56 points, which we know is right there, close to that amount.
Well, this is a team we saw perform pretty decently last go around, but didn't quite make it as far as they were wanting to. Reedsville High, 14 placement last go around when they were hoping to do a lot better. So really going to come down to how they perform here in this early fight, try to get some eliminations and take down the rest of the teams that are out there. There's a quick elimination that's already going to get them a point here. Now the entire team is taking on Kingdom of Plum, but wise for them to disengage on that fight.
This time around, though, a successful start is what Reedsville needs. Last time around, we saw them facing too many early knocks, right? And at the end of the day, it is going to be a successful one-on-one here as they all will regroup, tackle some of that med mist here from Kazuki to get everyone back in. And they need to continue to deliver here. They do not want Kuro the Cat to get this full revive off on Kingdom. And oh, just barely does Consolo miss out on the location here, and I'm a little surprised.
Unfortunate to say the least. It's hard to tell exactly where some of these players are, especially off the rip here, but just something you got to deal with as you are playing in these games.
Gosh.
Looks like they are near the, I think it's the Shattered Slabs for these players on this one, so not quite the spot we were used to seeing this squad from Reedsville land on, so I think they're just trying to change things up to see if maybe they get a better spot, but also depending on where the battle bus took them in the path to start things off.
And one big thing here as well is the fact that you have an easier opportunity against maybe potentially a weaker team. Like we said, getting early KP is huge. Kingdom of Plum here is already making a move out with Kira the Cat. Kira will be immediately found on the opposite end. It's going to use that rocket ram, though, from Consolo here into the water. And with that follow-up is looking just barely missed, though. The pixels of information.
Unfortunate to say the least. We don't have the exact whereabouts on what team it is that this Reedsville squad is facing off against, but those early eliminations that they got definitely going to help out a lot for them, as we do see Frag getting a knock themselves and trying to see what they can do against the rest of the competition that is out there they are facing off against. But Shattered Slabs has been hardly won by Reedsville, so they have plenty of time to loot it up and get everything possible from this POI.
I'll tell you what, we've officially got our score line in here after our last game, so let's take a look right at the top. Green level is still leading the pack with 109 points here. They didn't have that first place victory royale this time around, a 7th place finish, but their 8 elims keep them healthy. Remember, that is a 16-point spread just from their elims alone. I'll tell you what, though, teams are catching up, Odd.
That they are doing the best that they can. We talked about the team who got that first place finish, the Victory Royale last time, Lucy Ragsdale, 5th place. Even with that, they're still a few points behind of that Holly Springs High team, who's been having consistent placements, but maybe not as many eliminations as they would hope. They placed 4th last time with 3 eliminations, first time 2nd with 5 eliminations, so a little bit of a downgrade from there. But a team we do have to talk about that is quickly on the heels of that top 4, Chatham Early College, with 4 eliminations and a 3rd place finish. They're doing pretty good as far as placements go, but right behind them, a team we do have to talk about, Panther Creek, we saw perform very well in that last lobby. After just the bad luck they had in the first lobby where they got knocked out as one of the first 2 squads, 10 eliminations with a 5th place finish.
Second most in that lobby there, so definitely very, very good. I will say, seeing some early issues, though, for Chatham as they will face a minor drop, as well as Western Guilford in their own right, also the same issues there. So we'll see who comes out between those 2 teams. Chatham, remember, have had their success. We just discussed it. 6th place right now with a 4th and 3rd place finish. I believe arguably the most consistent roster outside of STEM and Holly Springs for their placement alone.
True. All 3 of those teams in the top 4 each time so far this go around, but really comes down to what those eliminations are going to look like as you see these players having some fun, driving the cars around the track, seeing if there's going to be anyone coming towards them near the mega city, but they're just playing with some of the different vehicles that are around here while they're waiting for the rest of the competition to thin out a bit.
And I believe we are beginning to see some follow-ups in terms of additional early damage. So many of our teams lighting up that feed, and I believe it is going to be Panther Creek once again, already finding some of those early elims and so much more. I mean, it is not stopping here. D1FN, I believe that coming through as well.
Yeah, Panther Creek Team B doing the best that they can so far with the way that they've been performing here. Team A also doing pretty good for what we saw last time, so some good improvements, but now we're going to be looking on to the B-Man squad here and see how they do against the team that is currently facing off against them with only 14 HP for Papa Panda.
Gotta be careful. Green level here. They were our winners of game 1, and now they face their own difficulties. Dr. Stork and Papa Panda, at least pizza in hand, but Schultz from behind. It is none other than Trinity High School. This is our super elim squad who have been so aggressive here. Needy Muscle doing a great job to provide defense as they find a great elim as this duo targets them successfully. Splika making the open run across here to maybe capitalize on Needy Muscle. But no one really looking at Papa Panda here. Even still, though, Dr. Stork is eliminated. Kexi, Splika off angles as well. I believe there is a 3rd party behind them. They've got to be careful.
That they do, especially when you are in Frenzy Field. It's such a coveted point of interest because there's so much loot that you can go for and so many different NPCs that you can do some objectives for and get some weapons. But GBH dug to win, looking to get into the box and see if they can take out anyone here and back up Splika, and some great work that's being put on display currently.
Trinity High School, even though they lose out on one early here, it is that split that allows them to take advantage. Dr. Stork and Papa Panda's on the other side now, the only 2 members left alive here for Green Level.
Which is insane to think about too, right? Because the way that Green Level performed in the first lobby, Victory Royale, really good, 22 eliminations, but now people know where they're landing. They've seen the footage, they've heard from the different teams maybe that faced off against them, and they're like, Frenzy Field is the way you want to go if you want to take out that #1 seeded team currently. So go against them and make it much more difficult for them to escape with their lives, and that's exactly what we have seen happen so far. With only 2 players remaining, but they just need to get away from Frenzy Fields and get away from the storm as it's closing in. But as you can see on the other side, another team right to their right-hand side.
Wake Young's Team A here over on the edges of Frenzy Fields will be making at least a move forward. And for Papa's Pan Dr. Stork, I don't think this is the appropriate take. Start to look for reboots, start to look for angles, but by gosh, do not move forward here. Splika is the first to find Papa Panda, and I will say there's no way you're coming out on top of this one. 3v1 with the Storm on your back here. A rocket ram in hand. And remember, the slight delay on the landing might be something to capitalize with. Dr. Stork, though, is eliminated on the other side. This is literally just leaving Papa's Panda to survive out here.
Yeah, Reedsville also getting involved in the feed, as you can see on the side, with some good knocks and eliminations potentially. Frenzy Fields hotly contested, but Papa Panda might be ending up in the crosshairs of another team that's right in front of them too. We saw Rodiddle do some good work before, but they seem to be trying to get away from this Reedsville team. So it's just Reedsville are going hungry for eliminations right now. They might find two potentially if Papa Panda can't get away.
Papa Panda doesn't even know that the bridge is already held at the hands of Bro Diddle here and will land right in front of the namesake. I will say, carrying on to this village, no one is being caught out. Reedsville actually attempting to move a little bit more towards that western side as Kexion Zaza apparently is representing here for Holly Springs. That is now the second roster, I believe, as we made mention of earlier. Wake Young, I believe they're Team A who gets caught out there. So for Trinity High School, this is a huge lead.
Definitely a full elimination, probably knocked the last player and just got everyone down at the same time and took them to task. So huge for Holly Springs, who were looking for some more eliminations and to try and cement themselves in that top four, because again, the most eliminations they've gotten so far was 5. They're barely holding on into that 4th placement that they have currently. So going to be huge for them to rack up those eliminations as things go on, and already at 14 teams, where it took us much longer in the last lobby, in the last round's effort to get to this point in time.
Now we tune in here with Holly Springs, right? And it has been the placement game for them. Got to be a little careful, though. There is guaranteedly a team just behind them coming out of that mega city that I don't know if they have the full impression of their location. Granted, 14 squads left. We do seem to be moving through this lobby a little bit faster comparatively to our start in game 2 here. So, taking the time, getting looted up, trying to hit that 150 mat level for everybody available on this roster.
That's always so important, especially towards the end, like we saw the build battles going on, players that were tunneling and trying to have the high ground as best as possible, and there were some players who completely ran out of mats and were in just a tough spot, couldn't rotate in time without any coverage, and just got destroyed by the duos that remained at the end of the last round of the lobby. But it's going to come down to what happens once the storm closes in yet again, because currently this is where things have slowed down a bit. We still have 48 players remaining, so still plenty of squads in the action right now. We're going to change perspectives this time and see how this squad is doing with a Rotten Joker, 2 Devious, and Zelina Gomez. I like the name.
I'm a big fan of it right now here, as it is E.E. Smith High's A-team. The first time we've gotten the opportunity to see the namesake. Looks like Jexy 2 Devious is first to find an elimination. Fire Scorpion down as well. James Player unable to dish it out here against Criticize K, and this team is quickly deleted. Not entirely, though. I do believe we see the last remaining member here, and one to take to the hills. I believe that is potentially West Forsyth, but still a huge advantage for the E.E. Smith High A team, who, in my opinion, really needs this one right now. I believe currently in 16th overall, have had 2 incredibly low scoring games.
Oh, and there goes Solo. So you do see Slicka able to try and take them on from Trinity High School, whereas Solo, we saw with the Reedsville squad doing all the work possible, needing muscles for Green Level. That was one of the players that was remaining on that team that escaped earlier on, that did get knocked down. So don't know exactly how Green Level is faring at this point in time, but not as good as you would hope to see. Also wanted to mention too, before we pass by it, Lucy Ragsdale High with James Blaze. That was the player who got eliminated. Lucy Ragsdale won the last round, so that team's out. That's another low placement for them. It looks like they're still in it because there's still 14 squads, so I think they still have 1 player remaining somewhere.
Yeah, right now, as it currently, no one is eliminated, but the major question for me is you've got this fight between Reedsville and Trinity High School. These are the 2 major teams that have been competing. And like you said, I mean, Trinity High School has been really, really good at picking up those elims, but has been dying off so early. And Reedsville, now is officially out of the top 4, had an excellent start to the day, but dying out early in that second game has cost them their success.
Ooh, one of the Panther Creek players getting taken out here. Then we see Bro Diddle go down as well. We saw them performing pretty decently before, so some good pickups here. Bad meat game we talked about doing pretty decent well. There we go. Some good eliminations across the board too.
And that's, I believe, going to be a huge hit to Chapman High School or early college on the other side of that exchange, leaving just Harrison Rose to survive as this single rat here. Check out that feed. Make sure we keep an eye on that one.
Still no full squads eliminated yet, though.
I was about to say, no one is technically out yet. So we see that 13. That'll be our big influence here. Instead, it is Holly Springs. Holly Springs all day long on their rotation. Actually, out towards the edge here, looking towards that Slappy Shores.
Oh, there goes Harrison Bros.
And that'll be it, I believe, for our friends on Chatham.
That's the earliest time we have seen them go down to Chatham. For those who might not remember, was the team who placed 4th and then 3rd last go around. So the 14th afterwards is really going to hurt their rankings from round 3, especially because they were just on the fringe of the top 4, didn't quite have the eliminations necessary to keep up with the rest of the teams out there.
Now, as we passed underneath this island moments before, we just saw Holly Springs pass by. This is E.E. Smith High C team, as they themselves aren't really making any major moves, nor do they have to. This next storm pulling perfectly into their height as it currently stands. Curious, though, they might want to take advantage of this rotation from Holly Springs in a moment. We'll just have to wait and see.
That's what happens once you get to like kind of the middle end of the game. We've seen 2 squads eliminated so far. Papa Panda, though, not a good look for them, because that was a good player from before that we saw performing as best as they could, but still the full squad there not eliminated just yet, so they still have a player remaining for that team.
And it is, once again, Trinity High School. We continue to bring up this name, whether it is Kexi, whether it is Jolts or Splicker and crew. This is a huge advantage, having the ability to take the constant fights and find these elims. Their scoreline maybe not as impressive as Green Level, finding that 22 start when we talk about Pops Pan scoring them, but still having the consistency to do it game to game to game is a major advantage. Oh,
ooh, there goes Flimsy.
Living up to the name. No, that's me.
R.I.P. But Chase has been doing pretty decent for themselves. We saw them last a solid amount of time in the last lobby, but they got to get out of this storm as it is towards Brutal Bastion area. As you can see, the snow here. We really haven't seen many endings in these first few lobbies. So many of the lobbies have been ending towards like Frenzy Fields and Shattered Slabs. For the most part, it seems like it's still going towards that area yet again. Really the northern sides of things not as exclusive as we would see for those enders.
Well, Lucy Ragsdale's high team Chase will just, I guess, wrap this one out for now. Take the slow, take the quiet route towards success here, as it's got to happen here. Potato drip, maybe a little too scary, as we know Chase can pull it off as a solo, as what was seen from that last game. For now, though, we're going to jump right on back over to that E.E. Smith High C team. As they make their way down from this height, they face difficulties. Telltale is completely wiped out, and now the rotation coming through here, they want nothing to do with this exchange. Pyro Rocker, I believe, is successful, as it is their own namesake, E.E. Smith High Team A, who comes alongside them.
Yeah, we see STEM Early College as well getting knocked down here a little bit too from D1 FN athlete from Panther Creek. So a lot of action happening, as you can see in front of our screen. Some more players getting some of their shields taken down too. Trying to see Pyro Walker go for a snipe on any of the players that are popping out to see if they can get an elimination, but it's just not quite working out for them. OnStar as well, looking pretty good for their team, as they have been popping off so far for this team of, not Holly Springs, but it was one of the other squads that we saw, EE, yeah. The EE team surviving a lot longer than they had before, but another elimination comes out, only 8 squads remain.
Well, for E.E. Smith Team C, they are successful in making the exchange. They do lose out on Telltale against their sister team in Team A, who takes them out, but it is recovery. Recovery is more than enough in terms of what you need. This time around, though, we haven't looked at Panther Creek in a hot minute. It seems like they have been successful 8 elims already on the board here. One of the highest in terms of a scoreline, and still looking for their next take.
And it looks like they were also able to knock down one of the Reedsville high school players, so huge pickup for them on that. David is washed, though. You saw how they were performing pretty good for their team in the past while they were getting shot down themselves, so a lot of knocks that are happening across the board as teams are rotating from the circle. Delicate, Aim Abuser, I mean, we talked about those players from, I think, one of the E.E. Smith squads doing pretty good for their team. E.E. Smith High C on this team also still trying to survive as best they can.
Mind you, Lucy's Ragsdale's Chase behind E.E. Smith right now, just ratting towards success. Granted, I think maybe a little bit of a loud rat at this point, as the rest of the E.E. Smith squads from Team A is completely separated. Jexy, Zelina, and Criticize all in different areas, and it will be Reedsville actually in their full force. All 4 members who are able to find this duo set out and alone. The Rockets coming through from Kazuki, Iconics, Wet, chasing down Criticize K as the builds are broken. The shots ring true as Jexy 2 Devious will quickly reassume positioning here to hopefully help this team succeed. Criticize falls, Consolo into the box, will be wiped out, but Kazuki and FaZe Rain deliver in their own return here. We're gonna have to stem for the revive, leave it up to Iconic to finish the job here against Selena Gomez.
Oh, and there they do it just then as we were taking a look on the situation as it was developing. Unfortunate to say the least. Aim Abuser also just getting sniped from distance, and so many players falling left and right in the last throws of this lobby. Some difference in elevation really could lead to the victory for the last few teams that are out there.
Now right here, STEM Early College on the edge. Arab and Badman, the only ones left alive here, right in front of Panther Creek. Still as a full trio to potentially defend. They definitely has actually a full quadret, I suppose. I'm not exactly. Squad. Yeah, that's a more. Get rid of the Q, add the S in there. Either way. Actually, wait, there's still a Q. Panther Creek. Panther Creek are still alive. That's all you guys need to know. They're
Panther Creek,
looking
STEM
good.
Early College. You see a little bit of the remnants of Reedsville also on the side. Kazuki is just trying to, or Kazix is trying to just escape from FaZe Rain here too. See how far they can get away from this situation, because FaZe Rain is just searching for that elimination, but still hadn't been able to get it. Bad Meat Game just getting some view of everyone else that is around, and dangerously so, but they didn't really get shot down from their broomsticks.
This is tough though. This next assumption into zone is at a major height here, and Bad Meat Game takes great advantage even on the backside of this storm, wiping both FaZe's Rain and Iconic here in control with, I believe, EE as well. That's gonna be a huge price to pay, but Bad Meat Game needs to help out his teammate. Coming up right behind T1 Evans Athlete. He misses the first shot. Still alive there, but that could have been a great take to support Arab Giannis.
That's where you got to be careful. You always got to be moving, especially in these late finishers. 12 players remain, 6 squads, so not really many full squads alive at this point in time. Really just trying to see how far they can make it. Arab Giannis still somehow around, doing what they can, but Chase finally getting knocked down by a Delicate. They lasted as long as they could, but it was not long enough.
Not long enough here. You can see Panther Creek dominantly at the top of this current situation. You will see Aim Abuser fall in the meanwhile here. Delicate and crew going to group back up. I do like this from our FN Athlete. We'll take the time to go for the revive, but truly no other major teams in full presence. Potato, DJ Halo, Batman, all solos here. Even Namaya Toavi. It is a duo. They're going to get the revive on beast mode. I will say, if we can see Panther Creek get this full elimination on Beast Mode and Pyro, who are falling to the storm, they are now officially the only full squad left.
Both Panther Creek teams still alive here too, so that's huge for that school, just to see if they can get more than one team into the top 4. Delicate looking to see what they can do. And you talked about it, full squad here with Aim Abuser, and just so much damage being put out. Poeto couldn't really do too much on that one. probably because their name's hard to pronounce too, but the sticky grenade launcher is so effective here, just dealing damage to the builds and making it so people are just going to be taking so much of that splash damage as well afterwards that you can't really do too much. You don't want to be flying around on a broomstick this late in the game because you're just going to be a sitting duck in the air.
Still, though, STEM does manage to survive, even from that low game, even from the presence they showed up against Reed early on. This was a huge success, and now, even though they will face their end here in a moment's notice, it was a great performance. And congratulations to Panther Creek. They successfully find their victory royale here in Game 3.
And we talked about it. They were tied for second in eliminations in the last round with 10. Now they were able to get the victory royale plus a lot of eliminations. They were the strongest squad towards the end there too. Probably racked up a lot more in those final fights. So huge victory for them to very likely push into the top 4 after some middling success from other teams and big struggles from some of the top contenders, especially with that green team that we were talking about, green level.
Green level facing really big difficulties early, especially with Reed coming into the mix as well as Holly. And my apologies, I believe. Yes. No, Trinity High School making their impressions as well here. But, I mean, we kind of make little mention of it. STEM do reappear from a 3rd to a 2nd to once again now in 2nd place. This team has consistently showed up in their placements, and that is something that will keep them competitive in the top 4. Even if we are leaving maybe a little bit more to ask elim-wise. Granted, though, when I checked in with them as they were targeting out Reeds, it looked like this might be potentially their best game yet.
That's huge victory for them, but we're going to have to take a quick break yet again. 2 more rounds remain after this one. Still so much up in the air this go around compared to the Eastern region. We were talking about more teams, more action, more competition, and more to come after this break. So Zephyr, we have a couple stories going into these final few rounds. Why don't you tell the folks at home what they can pay attention to in this
Sure.
overarching lobby that we have witnessed so far in these first 3 rounds?
So right off the bat, we start out with our leading story as they still currently are in the lead here. Green Level, who start off the day with an insane, insurmountable win, apparently. First place with 22 eliminations, but it
Oof.
has only gotten worse and worse from 7th with 8 to now 11th with only 1 here. They need to change their pace because teams like Panther Creek are catching up from 15th to 5 with 10 to now off of a win with 17. They are
Wow.
only 11 points behind Green Level for winning this qualifier. Granted, you only need to be in the top 4 to make it to state finals. Just behind them, it is going to be Trinity High School, who maybe doesn't have an idea of placing, but sure as shoot knows how to find those elims from 12, 13, and 6. They make up the 3rd and 4th highest elim counts beyond any other squad. And then, of course, STEM. STEM, who finds their way into the top 3, 2nd, and then I believe 2nd once again off of that last game. The, well, most consistently highly placing squad in the lobby here. Those, I believe, are your current top 4, and it only will get even more tight in the race ahead here, Vaudeville.
Holly Springs High also right behind them. Same with Reedsville High, looking pretty good for the most part. Also, Lucy Ragsdale, they did really good by getting that second victory royale after not playing in the first lobby, but they didn't place as high as they would have wanted to in that last one. 6th place with 5 eliminations. Eliminations matter so much more so. But we're going to be keeping a lookout on the horizon here. And speaking of Holly Springs High, I think they were already getting some shots out across the way against some of the other teams early on.
It literally never stops with that school. Meanwhile, it literally never stops here with our friends from Reedsville. Beast Mode caught out at the hands of FaZe Rain, even with the single starting pistol in hand, makes short work with the full elim across. The Maya Toei showing up there, an NPC helping as well, will allow the knock to come through, but it now requires the rest of Reedsville to show up and deliver. Telltale Story chased out by Kazuki and Iconic, and I can't imagine lasting for much longer.
E.E. Smith, High C, facing off against Reedsville in this matchup here, too, as you do see the shots coming out and the eliminations coming out pretty soon. But there's still at least one player remaining for that squad to hopefully escape and keep their team in it, because you could notice still 20 out of 20 squads alive in this one. So had one player maybe not drop in the exact area, as you can see on the mini map. They are just trying to figure out if they can get to that reboot or not. Maybe get the key and just escape and go to one of the open loot or locked loot boxes, excuse me, somewhere else in the map itself. But I think right now Slappy Shores has been won by Reedsville. You just got to back off from this play and go somewhere else.
For Reedsville at this point, taking their time to get looted up. Meanwhile, in that feed, we do see Holly Springs, a team that maybe isn't so apparent in their eliminations, start out successfully. And the same can be said here for STEM. Once again, Bama Game, a huge proponent of existing in these late game fights, is successful in finding some early wipes alongside so many of our other roster. Leesville Rhodes, as well as, I believe, Monster here from Holly Springs once again, continuing to rack
Wow. So many fights happening early on here. Noah getting that shot on Zelina Gomez, though, is going to be a huge start for that team, too. So close, like so quickly into this one, Zephyr. We've had 2 squads fully eliminated and more teams to follow. Now that's 3. That is the fastest we have seen squads eliminated since the first round of competition today.
Right there, it's going to be absolutely huge for the rest of these lobbies, as now Will Gotts here is targeted out as well. I believe that one a friend or foe from one of our major teams here earlier from Western Guilford, but it is at the hands of none other than Panther Creek, who have been consistently improving game to game to game, coming off of their hot win and now continuing to pick up their eliminations in our 4th and maybe even potentially final game. We'll have to wait and see.
Depends how quickly this one finishes out and if we can get into another one based on the way the teams are playing. 16 remaining, 49, so a reboot coming in at some point in time with players getting back into things here. So We still have a couple squads that were remaining. We're able to shore up their teams a little bit as well, and now seeing if they can get to a different looting destination so that they can keep themselves in the fight as long as possible. But those early squads who got wiped, I mean, that might be the last time we see them so far in the leaderboards and in the chances to make those state finals.
I will say 16 should be at 64 within a full squad lobby here. So 12 players currently missing. And like you said, reboot is the name of the game, right? So many of these teams, like we saw early here in Slappy Shores, having to run away for the hills and potentially look for the even opportunity of a revive. Right now, Reedsville looking for that key. Going to be using that vault, also available potentially in a moment here.
That's always huge too, to go for those vaults and see if you can get something from it to get you some really good weapons leading later on into some other fights. But speaking of fights, Flaky Gaming, one of the last remaining members of this squad here to see how they are able to make it forward in this scenario. But Hire Walker and Beast Mode getting some good eliminations. D1 Epic Athlete as well, able to knock someone down. But there we go. Flaky Gaming and their team completely eliminated now. 5th in 16th place, not exactly where they want to finish.
No, not at all, especially with the little amount of time that is currently available here. You need to be, shoring up all of those weaknesses as quick as you can. For EE Smith High C, we have seen a very small resurgence from them in their most recent games. Maybe not the highest elim counts, but from 11th attempt to now 5th from that last story here with the Mayan crew is the best that we have seen them. Speaking of stories, though, this is the big one that we are still waiting and watching. It is Green Level. Had an immaculate start, one that still hasn't even been passed yet with their major win first count here. But out of the runes, no one to really fight against yet. They have not run into any potential action, and that's a little scary. 15 squads remaining. There still is plenty of fights to be had, but teams like Panther Creek, once again, now up against Bro Diddle there, I believe, from Jatham. I mean, you've got to catch up.
You really do, especially with how many eliminations are coming out. You can't really spend too much time focusing on looting here, especially with the way that they've been placing lately. They need to get some eliminations on the board. They only had a single elimination and a really low placement in that last round. So an unfortunate situation to say the least, but I think they are just going to hold on to this POI because they notice that nobody else has contested them. There's still been so much loot left on the ground, so they know no one's been through this area as well. And Rumble Ruins, especially with it being lit up like this, means it is a hot drop area, so there is so much better loot than there typically would be in this area.
At least right now, they've got the time. This is still the most early portion of the game. I can't believe we've said goodbye to 5 squads already, well and before the closing in
6 squads
our
now.
third storm. Yeah, at this point here, I mean, take the time, get yourself looted up. 17 build mats for Stork is really nothing to behold when we talk about end game potential here, and it is happening. We talk about the build battles that are occurring here. Last time around, it was a full 4-man force from Panther's Creek, but our other 2 games were definitely a little bit more of the dice situations.
Trolling each other a little bit there while they were trying to go for loot. It took a little bit to get the door open and everything as well, but I think they're also setting things up just in case anyone comes after them when they are picking up the loot from this vault, which is completely uncontested. So they can get all the legendaries they want, some better weapons here and there, but also the full pot so that they can have some shields in the late game, because that's typically what a lot of players struggle with. They have plenty of health healing items as far as the med packs go, or the bandages, or some other options that are out there, but they don't really have much when it comes to shields. So 3 full pots is really huge to go with.
Mind you, the reboot has come through for E. Smith High in their early game where they lost out to Reeds.
Yep.
The Reeds has also come through immediately again here to find them and elicit the force that they need, right? I mean, it is absurd how close Reed is to potentially making it into this top 4 here, and it has been a constant story for this roster. From 8 to 9 to 10 eliminations there. That is in total 27 elims, a massive 54 of their current total, more than the 100 that they have. That is partially from their presence in these fights. And it is a question mark regarding their placement that needs to change. 6th, 14th, 7th. It isn't the worst, but having one of those big wins, a victory royale, would cement them a spot here in our state finals.
Speaking of placement so far, I mean, we now have the updated top 4 teams currently going into this round that we're watching right now. So Green Hill, or not Green Hill, excuse me, I keep thinking of Sonic for some reason. Green Level, still currently in first place with 126. Right behind them was our most recent Victory Royale winners with 17 eliminations that they just had with that Victory Royale. Panther Creek Team High A, or High Team A, excuse me. And then right below them, Trinity High School with the 12 eliminations that they got. They've been just racking up the elims. And then 4th place currently, STEM Early College, whose worst placement has been 3rd, and worst eliminations has been 3 elims in that first round. But they've been doing pretty consistently for themselves. And another really consistent team that has placed 2nd twice, Holly Springs High in 6th. They're still a couple points behind Reed, who are at 104. It's really close between 2nd and all the way down from there for the most part.
I mean, it is a tight race. I want to spell this out as clearly as we can. 4th is at 107. 5th, 104. 6th, 98. You see the drop when we get to Lucy or my apologies, not Lucy, LRH with their presence at 80 with Lucy
Ragsdale, yeah.
as well. Right. This is a problem for them to potentially solve, but one that will take a little bit more of a assumed gap here. Still though, plenty of time to go in these lobbies, but success necessary, especially with teams like, once again, you look at that feed, there's Reedsville taking out Nemaya. We just got to see again Panther Creek also lighting up the feed. I mean, these two are racing for a spot. Panther to retain theirs and Reeds to finally break on through the other side.
Yeah, we see the feed kind of catching up a little bit here too, even though we are spectating on to FaZe Rain with 4 eliminations themselves, and they were doing pretty good leading up to this point. But you can see on the mini-map below that there are a duo approaching from the north and then a trio from the south on it to these 4 players. So might be a situation leading into the Rumble Ruins in a second with a lot of squads just leading up to this area, as we do see some shots coming out onto the build, and we can get a look at that.
Yeah, Reed's immediately forced to escape here, and is none other than our friend from Trinity High School. This is the aggro team that has come through time in, time out here. FaZe taking some time for some minis right behind Next. Will be spotted out. Kazuki dropped out. Rain, no shields here, taking to the room in the skies for that mobility. But the response on Kexi and Slicka is just as quick here. GBH stuck out on the interior, will be wiped out here. Consolo taking advantage, and that is all said and over for Trinity High School. Once again here, knocked out in 11th, a low placing game, but I think this time around, Bot, they do not have the elims. I believe this was one of the first fights they had opted to take in our 4th game.
Yeah, we didn't really see as many eliminations as we were hoping to witness in the feed from that Trinity High School team. I mean, we saw just a couple shots here and there, but they ran up against the grinder basically with this team. But talking about that, there's another duo right near FaZe Rain and the rest of this team as they are trying to get their final player up. You can see that the duo was right behind them, which I guess they somehow didn't notice or just didn't care because they were running away from them. Noticed that, hey, they're not going to deal with us. We're just going to get our player back up. There's plenty of loot here. They'll pick it up as well, and they have the pick of the litter as far as loot goes for them to move back into the circle. So I'm curious on how that team that's just on the outskirts is going to try and get their 2 remaining teammates back into it. But you see Onster from that Holly Springs team. This team has been fragging out the entire time. They have gotten so many eliminations. Honestly, I think they have over 10 at this point.
I'm pretty sure if we check in at any given point, they might be on the same field as Reedsville with their 10 eliminations right now. And once again, there it is. Onster on the feed. Rotten Joker taken out here in full to continue this source of aggression for that Hollysville roster. Now, I'll tell you what, for Holly Springs, this is super duper important, but it's even more for a team like STEM. They haven't slowed down either, VOD. Some of the highest placing in the rest of this lobby here. And Bad Game is already at 6 full eliminations, the only holder on this team right now.
That's actually the most eliminations we've seen from a single player on their team, team, excuse me, too. We saw them play second with 10 eliminations. Bad Game was doing really good for them as well, but the rest of the team was able to rack up the eliminations there too. So now trying to see if they can continue their consistent placements, because again, third has been the worst that they have done. They had 2/3 and a second, still in the top 9 currently. They need some more consistency here to hold on to their top 4 position, because they do have some solid eliminations, but they could do with better placement and more eliminations to secure that top 4 for them going forward into this potential final round.
Mind you, once again, it is Onster from Holly Springs, the Holly Springs team. I mean, we gotta do a little check-in here in just a moment from Onster or David is Wash or DJ Halo, because I am absolutely sure that they are somewhere around that double-digit mark when it comes to elims. And oh, it is more than that. 13 elims already right off the bat. Onster, look at this. All of the legendary Slurp Juice in hand. I can only imagine what the rest of this roster looks like outside of Creaky Compound. And I don't think they're done. I don't think they're anywhere close to done. They've got a squad right ahead of them.
That they do, and that's Bad McGame and then Tony that we were just witnessing earlier, and they are going to be the most recent victims. DJ Halo definitely noticing that they are there, so they are going to be leading the charge for this team. They have all the loot necessary to go against the squad. It really depends on how things are happening, but there's another member of them now staying a little bit behind the team on the rotation, and they're not going to push on it. They're actually just going to capture this zone, get as much loot as possible, because they know how crucial this win would be for them. Remind everyone out there, this team has been also as consistent as STEM in their top 4 placements. Gotten second twice and a 4th, but they haven't had the eliminations to push into that top 4. Now at the 13, if they get a really high placement here, they're going to cement themselves in the top 4.
I think this might be it too. This is 26 points already. 26 points just from their elims alone. 13, an insane number. It's something that you'd see out of, say, Trinity High School, as they were eliminated at the hands of Reeds, who is now getting taken out by STEM. STEM with the double knock drop here. It is actually a big snipe coming through. Bad McGame finally moving in here. Panther Creek below. My gosh, big names.
All the top contenders in the lobby in this area right now, as it's going down to the wire with 8 teams that are remaining. Everybody trying to vie for those top 4 spots as best as they can. Panther, they're trying to see if they can last as long as they could. Brooms being shot and flown all across the ruins right now, as it's closing off even more so. The players in the ruins are going to have to rotate. Delicate, not really able to survive as long as they would want. Even with the builds that are blowing up, they somehow managed to escape. Papa Panda knocked down a little bit there too, so that's going to be a bad position for them. Delicate trying to heal up as best as they can, but eventually it's going to break down. They just need a shot on this player, and somehow they were able to escape with their life.
Meanwhile, it is going to be the rest here of STEM who are truly taking the brunt of this force. Jada finally brought low as Delicate, mind you, as low as they are, has just wiped out Fire Scorpion on the end of that feed. So at some point, he took a break to get a quick elim here, as STEM has found their footing, taking to the height. A huge advantage here for Panther Creek, as they now get to focus them. Reed has left the action. They want nothing to do with the chaos that we have just found. But Arab Giannis forced to drop back down, as they were unable to make that climb in front of our FN athlete here.
Our FN athlete doing everything that they can for their team as best as possible. You see STEM coming through too with Aim Abuser here, looking for whatever they can against the squad. Actually, that's one of the E.E. Smith's teams that are getting involved in the action. Again, so much damage happening. Jada Moneyman down, Emma Game down as well. Delicate can't do too much either, as there is an elimination that comes through. D1 FN athlete looking for anything they can for Panthers, and Bad Game somehow just able to maneuver away, but they can't do too much there.
It is a huge win for Panther Creek. Not the full squad wipe here, but they know it is more than enough. When the storm has found itself this small, it is unlikely that the reboots are to come through here. So a major success for Panther Creek off of their back of their win to keep this one leading. But up ahead, I can see challengers. It is Green Level still alive off of their success wipes, and Reed, who needs this more than anything. Papa Panda and Needy Muscles aren't looking much better themselves, but they've got focus ahead. TT Aim Abuser find that.
Papa Panda just looking for some sort of angle with their shotgun, and it's still not really working out too well. The pump's not as strong as they would like it to be, so switching over to the rifle maybe for a second in case they need to get some pot shots onto someone. You see Panther right below them. Dr. Stork already down, so they're going to be completely eliminated. Needy Muscles and Papa Panda, the only two remaining here for this squad. You do see the sticky grenade launcher coming out to try and knock down the builds and take down Aim Abuser. There's some good shots being put out, but still not enough. You need to use that, the metal perfectly timed so that they can hold on to their builds as best as possible. Barely catching themselves here as the build below them is taken down. Panthers trying to survive as best as possible. Nightmare does get knocked almost, and they do just there from a different squad who comes down. And Papa Panda can't do much here except try to escape, see if they can get some ammo, and that's exactly what they needed, that plus resources.
It's a huge win for the green level squad. Remember, even though they haven't been looking good, this is still a very dangerous team here, even in the hands of two. As a result, for Panther Creek, big loss. Now just down to Delicate. The chase ensues. B-Man and Needy Muscles. I do think they lose out on tracking this one down. Instead, it's going to be a focus towards the zone. Behind them, plenty more. And in front, none other than our friends from Holly Springs, who have been waiting all along. Look at this. Reed taken out. Consolo wiped in full. It is down to Kazuki, and they can check out the low ground whenever they want.
6 squads remain, 15 players, so not really full teams that are still available here. Delicate just barely holding on there, trying to see if they can build away, but it's just going to be a matter of time for things to go down for these teams. But Hunster, they got to be careful not to take any of that storm damage. Get away. They don't need to push the issue too much.
Whoa!
F Athlete finally feeling the music here on this one, almost completely knocked down themselves, and 4 distractions coming out for Onster to just put some shots on. 8 eliminations. They're looking for 10. U1F and Athlete somehow was able to knock someone else down along the way. Aim Abuser down for Papa Panda too, so green level doing pretty good themselves with some of these eliminations, as you can see them popping up fully in the feed now.
At this point, it is a required move here for all these rosters getting towards the south side of this storm. Instead, for the first time ever, we introduced Cool Artist and Tuedo Drip in this game here. And doesn't seem like Holly Springs is looking particularly for them yet, just trying to get set up on the edge of this next storm rotation. Still though, Mr. Chronospirit able to find Cool Artist, just leaving Potato on the other side here. I love the height, the advantage that Holly Springs take as Reed arrives, as well as green level just beside them. And if I am correct, I believe we do have Lucy just below in the face of, I believe they're one rat once again. Whoever our friend was, I believe Chase 8X from last time around, also still in it.
DJ Halo is just trying to solo a team. It's basically what we saw there for a second. He had backup from someone, and they did escape to the other end with a rocket ram to see if they can take down one of the other teams and Needy Muscles that we see there. But so many players launching off. DJ Halo is knocked here by Papa Panda, so green level doing pretty good for themselves. They do get elimination, and this is the best performance we've seen from them since the first round. So definitely cementing themselves in that top 4 so far.
Chase 8X able to find Potato Drip and send them home. Meanwhile, for Holly Springs, wiping out the member of Reedsville, FaZe Rain here. Still though, like you said, green level now on even footing with Holly Springs, who have been so impressionable within this current lobby. A 3v3 potentially for the end game. Mind you, FaZe Rain still in, I believe, potentially stuck on the revive. B-Man now the focus of so many of these other rosters here, able to find the moment's notice on the metal success. Holly Springs now a turned on focuses, and Chronospade wiped out. Holly Springs, as good as they have been, are now a duo.
The greatest look for Holly Springs, but with all the eliminations that they've got, how far things have been going for them, they've been doing pretty good. Reedsville completely taken out of the equation. Panda putting in some good work while we've been looking at E-Man, but now it comes down to the rotation. Holly Springs looking to be there on the rotation as best as they can, but Needy Muscles, Papa Panda facing up against them. It's a 3 versus 3 situation between these two squads. David is almost completely down here from David is Watch, and trying to see what they can do. Actually, I think it's 2 + 1 + 3 that we see.
Right here for Holly Springs, Onster and David is washed, the last remaining members. They lose out on Chronospade and DJ Halo fairly early. And for Onster, might be all said and done as well.
Close.
Papa Panda from green level making the moves will be wiped out from David is Wash just as quickly as they show up the full elim, but still it is a 2-person advantage for green level. Just as I say that though, Needy Muscles looking lower and lower here. I think just barely able to survive on the edge of that zone. David is Wash not looking much better themselves with the storm forcing them to move here. Needy Muscles now taking the ticks as well. You gotta thank the Lord that B-Man is up on top of it all here. David dropping down straight into Needy Muscles will find the kill, not before they themselves are eliminated. And we are at a 1v1 green level versus Lucy's. Chase is still alive. Can he solo for the win again?
Oh, we've seen it happen a couple of times here, and they rocket ram out of the area just so that they can get a side. But B-Man, not much help to work with. Honestly, if Chase pushes the issue, this will be their win. Or just wait for the storm, and that's all they need. Chase avoided the fights for the entire time towards the end for Lucy Ragsdale, and this is the second win that we have seen for this squad, who are in 10th place going into round 4.
Lucy Ragsdale out of nowhere in a very similar fashion. Survive off of the solo plays from Chase. They are the only team to win twice. And mind you, that was in a lobby where we were going into the end. We had Reedsville. We had Green Level, who had won previously. We had the remnants of STEM. We had Holly. And in their most successful presence yet, some of the best players in the central region all competing in Chase the entire time as a solo member. That's a huge question though, VOD. Even if you win as a solo, how much did you truly pick up?
We saw the one we didn't even see the elimination actually, because it was the storm that got the elimination on that one. So it really depends on how many eliminations they were able to get up to that point. Honestly, in the feed, we didn't really see too much from Lucy Ragsdale High. So it's going to be crazy to determine exactly how things went down in this one. So we're going to be taking a quick break, seeing if we have time for another round. If not, we'll be totling the scores here to see exactly who our top 4 are going into the end of this. But we'll be taking a quick break. We'll be back in just a sec with those results. We have our top 4 going into the final round of competition for the Central region for VESL Fortnite Regionals for day 2 here, Zephyr. And the competition couldn't be any closer.
That's right. It is still green level at the top at 171, but with the major success of Holly Springs High with their 159-point second place lead with a third place finish in our last game with 19 eliminations, they shore that up. Now Panther Creek retains their success with their 6th and 10th at 155, and Reedsville in 4th at 150, the current cutoff to make it to state finals after 4th with 12.
Wild, which is insane to think about too, because STEM fell off a little bit there to 8th place with 7 eliminations, but the team that we really were talking about the most that was fragging out before, Trinity High School, only a single elimination, 11th, because it was Reeds who were able to take them down before and send them to the gulag where they have to try and come back in the next round and move forward from there. But it's going to come down to this round 5 for the final teams trying to push into that top 4. Will anyone try and take the #1 spot from green level? Will Holly Springs High place less than top 4 because they've gotten second twice, third the last time, and 4th in the second round? Or will some other random team somehow get a victory royale and push into that top 4? Lucy Ragsdale only in 7th, even though they have won twice. There's not enough eliminations. Eliminations are the name of the game. Get 10 and you're pretty much guaranteed to have a solid amount of points to push into that top 4.
Yeah, this is the big question. Even though Lucy Ragsdale finished with double wins, the fact that they don't show up for the first match is an incredibly pressing issue for this roster. 116 points is not enough, and even with a major win, you are only so close as this bar continues to raise in our final match. So from Lucy up to Trinity High School to STEM as well. These are the 3 major schools who maybe have an opportunity to shake things up and find their way to state finals.
Unfortunate right now for Leesville Road is they had Noah be the first player eliminated in the lobby, so they have to run away from the situation that they found themselves in and get to a different position to get the reboot fan going really quickly right into the gate. So not exactly where they want to start in this final round of competition.
And it's no better for Western Guilford High.
Down.
Yeah. Already down in a member, and that'll be it there. And I believe that could have been potentially a solo as well, because all we really did see was Little Gots find their elimination there. So Western Guilford,
the solo from Pine Forest, yeah.
Okay, so we say goodbye to them as that'll be said and done, at least for now. But hey, for the rest of these teams, you know you've made it 1 placement further.
Yeah, exactly. 1 placement further, and that's all you need to do. Place as best as you can in this final round. We'll also get a plenty of eliminations to move forward. I mean, 10 guaranteed 20 points there, especially with the differential between some of these top teams being so close as they are. But a lot of it's really just going to come down to the rotations that we see from these teams after they finish their initial looting. You can see that this squad that we're watching right now, they don't want to be near anyone. And it's a wise decision to do towards the start of this game, because a lot of teams in the last round we witnessed, I think it was 4 or 5 get eliminated off the rip.
It's a bit of a shame, a bit of a tough position to be, but like you said, slower to its pace. And that leads me to really question, hey, how are teams approaching this current lobby? You know, everything is on the line in these final moments here, and the placement, the eliminations, everything matters in this final game of the day.
Already seeing Flimsy getting knocked a little bit there too, so James Plays putting in some work in the feed so far to see what they can do against the competition that is out there. DJ Halo, we saw them before, and B-Man from Green Level, who were doing pretty good themselves.
God.
Needy Muscles also struggling, so Holly Springs facing off against that team early on. They know where they land by now, so might as well go against them.
Meanwhile, here in early fight, Zelina Gomez, Rotten Joker, running directly into the face of Cool Rs and Potato Drip. It isn't quite the knocks yet, but the exchange immediate here. Around the corner, Cool Rs who missed first shots found as Rotten Joker even still looking as, I'll say it, Reedsville to fight in their own.
We also see, as you mentioned, Reedsville on the feed getting a fight themselves. Cool Artists with only 19 HP here. Not really too much they can do here. Aryan Gamer knocked 2. Potato trying to do anything they can to get rid of Zelina Gomez, who is still somehow staying alive. Just get the knock 2 on the Cool Artist and going to go for the elimination. They almost managed to escape for a second, but just too devious, able to get that one away instead. Aryan Gamers can't really do too much here either, so they are going to be in a sticky situation themselves where they will get knocked out, but Potato is able to escape from the best of them for now, but they are getting chased and they just need to vacate, but no, the entire team is knocked out there, and that's the last we'll see of them for this competition here.
Bit of a shame. In the end, it is a successful wipe and a quick emote from our friends over at EE High A. And I will say, for EE Smith, this is one of the very few times we have found their success. But the rest of the map is lighting up. From Reedsville to Panther Creek to Holly Springs to Green Level, everybody seems to be in action, and not just against randoms. I mean, literally against each other here. Hopefully, we may get the opportunity to pop on over and see how that is finishing up, because 16 out of 19 is already an elevated rate.
Elevated rate for sure for the way these players are dropping and these squads are dropping. Just goes to show how hungry these teams are for eliminations, especially if they've been keeping track with the leaderboard and how the top teams have been performing. The top teams consistently have been getting plenty of eliminations across the board. Just looking at the top 4 teams, the lowest amount of eliminations any of these teams have gotten was Panther Creek High, Team A, with 0 in their first round, but they really turned things around since then. But apart from that, really, Holly Springs High wasn't really doing too well in eliminations until their 19 elimination game last time, which really cemented them into that top 2.
I mean, their placement has been remarkable through and through. Second, fourth, second, and then third. It was, like you said, just those eliminations that they truly needed. Putting up a scoreline that is only bested by Green Level's first performance in the initial game of today's series. 22 kills themselves, 19 for Holly Springs.
Now we finally get a look at one of my favorite areas in the current Fortnite map itself on the island. Brutal Bastion is always a really good place to vacate from when you're rotating, just due to those permanent launch pads that are in the area that you can use in the domes, and a lot of loot around the area, as well as, I believe, a vault at the bottom of it too. So plenty of stuff to work with, and a reboot fan that you can see them going for their 4th member of their squad to get back into the fray here. But really going to come down to how the other teams perform as things develop, as we're going to be taking a different look on to Telltale and Pyro Walker's team over here.
Beast Mode and crew coming through from EE Smith High. See the opposing levels of these teams from earlier on. Once again, not quite the most successful in terms, but already right off the bat, something that we do miss during the initial spec feed is the 14th, 15th, and 16th. Some minor visual bugs here and the glitches with some of this tree line, but hoping to bring you as much as we can see right now.
Here's what happens. Papa Panda, though, knocked down by D1F and Athlete from Panthers A team. So huge fights that are happening there. If we can get a look onto that one between those two teams. Aim Abuser as well, getting a knockdown themselves. And we do see the eliminations coming through here. Papa Panda did get knocked down. Dr. Stork trying to see if they can keep themselves up here from KBB Brown, doing everything themselves, but we are getting some rocket ram coverage to try and get away from the action and back to where the rest of their team is, and wisely so, after one of their players did get knocked a bit.
They still have the opportunity to look for a good reboot. It is incredibly early on here for Green Level, and it isn't the team that I am the most worried about. They have retained first place over the course of the entire series today, but you still need to finish strong if you want to confidently find your way over towards those state finals. I can't say the same about Panther Creek, though. Panther Creek, even though they are, yes, still also in 3rd place, it's not as secure, but they're more than happy to continue to pick up eliminations to make it secure.
And then speaking of eliminations, we already see another player eliminated in the feed itself. Not a full squad taken down just yet, so still taking some more time for these teams to get knocked out in this final lobby. wise for some of these teams to disengage when they can too, because they know how crucial that placement is really going to play into the later stages of where they are going to end up in that top 4 leaderboard. Whereas last time we only got 4 rounds, this time we finally have this 5th one where teams kind of know going into it, this is going to be the final and last shot that they have. So if they have a bad placement, they don't have enough eliminations, then that could just end them right outside of that top echelon.
Meanwhile, KB Brown spotted out here from green level. Surprising that they managed to source this one. Taking to the brooms, he's just barely able to get out. Meanwhile, I never like seeing that. B-Man, well, does get the drop on KB Brown in the end, but it was a small peek at Holly Springs. David is washed, was eliminated for just a moment longer. And I cannot believe what I'm seeing. A rocket ram into perfect distance. Jarvis ahead, taking a little bit of the spraying wind there to get out of this exchange. And curious if green level follow this one up, leaving that one for the fray. Allows a return for Beeman and crew to get this one off. Yes, takes to the skies, follows them.
Wise to do that too, get back into the zone as best they can, but you can see also on the mini-map that there is a solo player looming nearby that you have to see exactly where they might be. They're trying to chase down, and that's a good way to go through the building to see if anyone is in the area, but there isn't really anyone in position. They are able to pick up the ice gauntlet so that they can use that to maybe create some barriers along the way if they face off against anyone, and you see it built there just to test it out for a second and provide some coverage once they destroyed the building itself.
I will say it is all said and done here for our friends on David's watch. Panther Creek has successfully found them alone and eliminates. For Holly Springs, that's big issues. Even though you are in your most successful or coming out of your best lead as of yet, you need to continue to deliver here. It does look like it isn't perfect, though, for Panther Creek. Sticking a revive on Nightmare right now. It is, for some reason, Aim Abuser's job to just send this one full forward in the meanwhile.
You see some damage coming out too, so they do have to get out of the area as best as they can. And Aim Abuser, as you were talking about, putting all the pressure on as best as possible to see if they can take on anyone and relieve that pressure that they were facing while they were trying to get that revive back up or just bring them back from being knocked down. And Beast Mode and Pyro Rocker just feeling the pressure from Aim Abuser. U1F and Athlete needs to push in so that Aim Abuser doesn't get taken down by themselves, but the trees are here in our vision, unfortunately, for a second. It's okay, though. We were blinded for a moment, but nobody taken down just yet.
No one quite out yet. Pyro Rocker, though, forced to move quite a ways away here, and it is very clear to me that Panther Creek are the dominant factor in this current fight, and they're even chasing out Pyro Walker in the end here, finding one last major shotgun blast and into the skies. It will be all said and done for EEC Smith's High C.
And it is, unfortunately, for one of the EE Smith teams, and Panther Creek doing what they can, but eventually, it looks like this zone is going to end closer towards Shattered Slabs and Relentless Retreat, right where we started things, actually. Zephyr was around that area in the first round of play here, so depends on how the rotations are going to go. Rotten Joker and Zelina Gomez also not really the greatest luck that they could have hoped for as we saw them earlier on in this round.
I will say a return for a team, though, that we haven't discussed very much here. It is going to be Trinity High School team to start out with some of their own eliminations. It fell very early on that last game up against Reed High, and as a result, lose out in the top 4. They're one of the biggest teams we're currently watching out for the potential to push into that top 4 and maybe walk away with a place at that state finals, but you've got to show up. You got to show up big here. Panther Creek is already walking into the facility with the 13 eliminations to garner themselves. 26 points already off of the bat here. A very, very confident way to end the day.
And there's still 11 teams remaining. So I feel like with this amount of eliminations already with themselves and with the placements we've seen from them too, and being able to get a victory royale, I mean, it's going to be hard for any of the other teams that are out there to push into that top 4 and usurp them from the top 3 finish that they have currently going into these last bits. And what a snipe there too on the Purplish.
And that takes us down to our 10 remaining rosters. Purplish from afar wiped out here. A big, big loss. But we'll check into a team that we love to look at here. Bad Game coming through with an early second place finish, and now representing for STEM, who needs it more than ever. 5th after the results of that last game, which arguably weren't bad, but they weren't perfect. From 3rd, 2nd, 3rd to 8th with 7, STEM needs it now more than ever here to surpass Reed, to surpass Halley, and to surpass just about anybody else.
We saw Bad Game have all the eliminations for their team last time, too. I believe it was like 6 total and then 1 from another player. So 7 that we saw in actuality for that squad once they got towards the end of it. So they definitely need to do a little bit better from there and move forward to have some better performances for this team for STEM. But they had the most consistent placements outside of Holly from the way that we saw them performing before, 3rd, 2nd, and 3rd. But it was just that 8th place finish that did them dirty and push them out of that top 4 placement so far. So if they can get some eliminations here, that'll be huge for them moving forward. It's just going to really depend on how they perform going into these final seconds. But now as the storm is going to be closing in just a moment, really just depends on how these last, I think, 10 teams are going to fare against each other.
I actually kind of like this for a second. We get to take a quick peek at the scoreboard and very clearly see that Panther Creek is in the lead as we tune back in with Green Level, a team that might actually be surpassed for the very first time today. Nowhere close to the same amount of elims, but still, I will admit, plenty of time within the 31 that remain to potentially shore that one up. And hilariously, once again, as a solo member, I mean, I'm not even sure if Lucy Ragsdale even has a team at this point. Chase.
It's just Chase.
Is surviving in the ocean. You can literally see him diving, bobbing, and weaving.
I don't think it's going to be enough for Lucy Ragsdale to get a win here if Chase is the only one playing on this team. I mean, they gotten 2 wins just by ratting it out somehow towards the end. But the second win that they got after not playing in the first round, they got 10 eliminations at least. So they were able to get something from that. But with the way things are going so far, it's not looking good for Chase and the rest of the team. But there is only 9 teams remaining now. So who knows if some craziness happens for the rest of the squads, but based on the points that they need to catch up, it doesn't look likely.
Very unlikely here, and we'll discuss another team that we haven't talked about in quite some time, Chatham, also finding their drops early, Bro Diddle, and now, I believe, 08 Za here, also knocked out in their most recent skirmish, and a fall from grace to be discussed in that one. A very strong start for Chatham, but not quite replicated in their 3rd, 4th, and now potentially 5th games here. There's still 9 teams remaining, so they're still well within this lobby, but maybe not with the KP they
Panther Creek, again, racking up eliminations too. I mean,
What's up, guys?
when you forget about them for a second, they don't want anyone to forget about them. And as they are rotating here too, they see a couple of squads actually behind them that they are putting some shots on. But Delicate's got to be careful here. They don't want to, well, I guess they do want to go for the elimination.
Yes,
They're just trying to secure the top 4. They're sending it with the rocket ram to see what they could do as well. But I think that might be Nightmare, Demps Dog being pushed in by Aim Abuser and FN Athlete here. They are just trying to see if they can get all these players from behind and take them down a peg. And it's not quite working out. They did get 1 elimination, but not on the second player.
I was about to say, if we were in a situation where this team didn't know they already had the 14 eliminations that they do, I might argue towards some restraint. But at this point, given that they're already well within that top 4, they have the opportunity to be this aggressive, to constantly send it forward, to play upon the force. And ahead of them is none other than STEM. At this point, for STEM, while they may be far behind, a wipe against a team like Panther Creek would be huge. Not because it would take them out of the competition, but because they just need the eliminations.
Need the eliminations, need to do what they can to get through the competition that is in front of them. And you do see Bama Game, Arab Giannis, and Jada Moneyman getting away as best as they can, so they don't really have to worry about this squad of Panthers, as they are just on the prowl looking for eliminations to go for here. As we see the most eliminations so far, Aim Abuser with 9 currently, and also 226 meters. That's crazy.
I think, yeah, the 226 meters coming through from that exchange up against Purplish Bulk moments ago on E. Smith High's B in the sky there. So for our friends at Panther Creek, Aim Abuser is leading the pack. But we'll have to take a look here in just a moment, see exactly who else continues. And It is Panther Creek now finding Fire Scorpion, and I love this. We are heading towards Relentless, down in the oceans, in the depths themselves. One of the hardest places to play.
Really
if you
is.
do not have a space to work with here.
All the maneuverability too, just to see what you can do. But you got to be careful when you get on these zip lines because you are just a sitting duck there for Delicate. But nobody was firing off against them. They're just really trying to go for the eliminations, and looking at the totals that they have right now, I don't think anyone is going to eclipse them in this lobby with even the amount of players that are remaining. Sticking grenade launcher too with so many rockets available to them. They're just going to be shooting ducks or fish in a barrel right now is what it seems like, and getting all the damage, finally getting one elimination, forcing others to launch up into the air like flying fish that they can shoot, like skeet shooting at this point now. It's just Delicate doing all the damage and just trying to take out the team. Chase somehow is still alive over there, though.
Well, it'll be enough to drop Antoni here in the meanwhile, and the water is more than punishing with the bullets to come through. Delicate, another 2 elims here, now skyrocketing that total to 22. This is officially
they're tied
with the highest elims that have ever been granted with green level just across them. We'll see Arab Giannis and many more start to make their move in, and Delicate gets a quick peek at Chase. I don't think he follows through with the elims, but I can't imagine
shield on Chase, by the way.
Yeah, with really where he's set up, green level is likely to capitalize there as the full 4 force are on this island and they're lonesome and begin to put shots down where they count. It is the sticky grenades that forces Chase to work with the metal early. For Lucy Ragsdale, it might be 2 incredible wins, but those rockets make you move.
Chase just going right into the lion's den, shot right in the air. Not much they could do there. Bad Game trying to do something here, though, and see if they can take down Papa Panda, but not the effort you want to see from them whatsoever, as they're going to be quickly knocked, and green level are going to get away from the storm. Nightmare and Delicate seeing what they can do here with the rest of the Panthers, who are chilling on top of a build that you can't quite see right now, but it's there. Just trust me on this one. As these players are shooting from the high ground, trying to see what they can do onto this. Delicate and Nightmare looking for some sort of angle, and I think there's a third team at the bottom as well that we couldn't quite see.
4 squads left alive here, and Panthers Creek clearly the team that would walk away with this win if they keep this same tempo. Papa Panda finally picked off by Delicate as they continue to build this lead. B-Man, Needy Muscle, the only 2 remaining here for green level. Even if they're in the top 4, you know they want to keep this one going. A med mist available for Delicate, but he's got to make a return back to the height here to get the chance to use it. A big success there, as now we are down to 3 squads. It is between our friends from Panther Creek, the remnants of green level, and Trinity High. This means Holly Springs eliminated early, and more importantly, in 4th with 150, Reedsville. They were so close to being knocked out before this game, and Trinity High, depending on where their elims slip, depending if they win this game, might usurp them.
Oh, this is a tough situation for Trinity High. We definitely need to keep an eye on exactly how they're performing. They're going after Delicate to make sure that they can take them down and get that elimination 3-on-1 situation, with Delicate somehow outbuilding all of them by themselves to get away for just a moment, but they do get shot down for a second. They do get knocked down as well. There is going to be an elimination coming out soon, but Kexi does get shot by Aim Abuser, and that's a huge win for Aim Abuser to at least get that knock. They're not going to have time to get the revive on that player as well, and Flicka just trying to see what they can do to stay up here as well, but Panther right on top of them.
For Panther, it's already a double knock drop onto Kexi and Jolt as they make their return here, even if it is at the cost and loss of Delicate. If you are Trinity, you are begging and praying for any second longer here, but after decisions like this and just Flicka alive, you're going to need green level to step into the fray, to provide some angles to stop Aim Abuser from finding the abuse that they live up to the namesake.
Such a dangerous situation to be in for Trinity, but there we go. One of the Panther players does get hit down by Drunk to win, so there is still a chance for something to happen here, and Dr. Stork is going to get one down. B-Man getting involved in the Action 2 from green level. D1F and Athlete was actually able to stay up and get some good damage on too, so Flicka eventually did get eliminated on this one, so it does look like it is a 3-on-1 situation here with Aim Abuser trying to do a 4-on-1 situation. It's just going to be green level waiting to see if they can take down Aim Abuser. There is one more player somewhere from the distance, it looks like, shooting at them. So Aim Abuser having some support from somewhere else, but not much they could do here in this situation as Nightmare from above, they can't do anything to save them. But Aim Abuser got Dr. Stork down somehow.
And 80
Oh,
muscles
he's down.
Crew. That will be it for them, sticking potentially that revive depending on how long the storm is. I can't imagine it is much. It is left up to Nightmare, albeit the height available is officially a 4v1 and more like a 4v gun here, taking to the rocket ram. One last opportunity, but barely touches the ground. Our fallen angel to take to the skies. And congratulations again to Green Level. They start the day off the win, and they finish strong with one as well.
And Panther Creek Team A finishing in second place there too, looking pretty good for themselves. They started off in a bad position in round 1, 15 on the eliminated side of things out of 16 teams with 0 elims, and then racked up the elims since then, 10, 17, and 10 with a win. Now also a second place finish there too, depending on how many eliminations they had. I think they had over 20 something, right? So definitely in the top 4 for them. Same for Green Level. Really depends on how Holly Springs did in this last one. Same for Reed and STEM, as well as Trinity High School. It depends on the eliminations and the placements for where those teams are going to end up in the top 4. But I'm pretty sure we can say Panthers and Green Level were definitely cemented in that top 2.
That being said, we are going to take this one to a short break. When we come back, we will have the final scores, and we'll be sending 4 teams on their way to those future state finals.
production crew behind us has figured it all out with all the numbers crunching done and in the past. We have our top 4 teams. Let's go over the top 3 first here, Zephyr. Then there's a little bit of interesting scenario with that 4th place team. But we saw it was Green Level doing pretty good for themselves throughout the majority of this, holding that number 1 spot, but it was taken right at the end by the team of Panther Creek High, Team A. 24 eliminations and a 2nd place finish was enough for them to win just by a couple of points.
Yeah, literally a 5-point difference there between themselves and none other than our winners from that last game, Green Level. They start off with a win on the day, and they finish with a win in a happy 11 elimination. So not a small win at all to finish at 223 points.
And then 3rd place, a little bit behind at 184 points, but pretty decent placement and eliminations themselves was Holly Springs High. That 4th round really cementing them into that top 4 with a 3rd place finish and 19 eliminations. The 3rd highest elimination total we had seen in a single game. So kudos to them. But what's really interesting is this 4th place. What exactly happened here, Zephyr, to get us to how things ended up here?
So before we got into the match here, Reed is leading by a landslide coming off of their high elimination totals. But the problem is we get into our last VOL match and they drop in 16th place and finish out with 2 limbs, setting them at 163 points. Behind that, though, is a massively successful game for STEM with a 4th place finish with 1 elimination. A consistent performance across the board, though, that sets them at 163 points. A tie between Reedsville, our dominators, our eliminating force, and STEM, our consistent placers. And tiebreakers here at VESL are settled by eliminations. Reed has the higher elimination totals across all 5 of our games today, so they are the ones to take that coveted spot and find their way to state finals. And it is crazy, VOD, because all STEM needed was one elimination. Not just in this game where they only found 1, but potentially across any of their other games today.
It just goes to show how important eliminations are in this format. For any of the other regions that are watching this competition today to see some of the teams that they might expect in the state finals, eliminations matter so much, especially with the tiebreakers. But you can see the top teams who made it into the top 4 were the ones who eliminated the most out of anyone in the competition that was here. So congrats again. Just to remind you all, it was Panther Creek High, Team A, Green Level, that we also saw Holly Springs High, and then to round things out, Reedsville High in that 4th place, joining the 4 teams that we had from the Eastern Regional to make it to the state finals, which was both New Bern High, Team A and B. Then we also saw Southwich Edgecombe High, Team C, and Currituck County High being the other 4 teams from the Eastern Regional. But tomorrow, we're going to be having the Southern Regional, then on Thursday, the Western Regional to round out our last 8 teams who are making it to those state finals in the beginning of next year. Zephyr, any final thoughts from you before we send things away? Because we had some amazing Fortnite action today, and we're only halfway through the regionals this week.
We asked at the very start, are we going to see another new